Welcome to the Holyoke School Committee for Monday, November 16th. It's 6 p.m. I just want to remind everyone real quickly that pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20, I am hereby informing all attendees that a video and audio recording is being made of the meeting, and the meeting is being live streamed and run live on the city's community TV channel. Also, if you are logged into this webinar, Spanish interpretation is now available by clicking on the globe icon located on the bottom right of your screen and select the Spanish option. Now in Spanish. Si ha iniciado sesión en este seminario web, la interpretación en español ahora está disponible haciendo clic en el icono del globo ubicado en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla y seleccione la opción Español. With that being said, roll call, please.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Morse.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. LeFay.
Present.
Mr. Sheehan.
Present.
Ms. Brunel. Ms. Tensley Williams.
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. Burks.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Feliciano Sims. Mr. Wellahan.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Collmore. We see that you're there.
Oh.
You press *6, we could hear you. Mr. Kershane?
Here.
Thank you.
If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. If anybody has a flag that can display it, that'll be greatly appreciated.
You have a flag mounted.
Oh my God, that is awesome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Another friendly reminder, I know I say this often, but if you are part of the school committee, I ask that you please keep your videos on, but as well keep yourself muted. If you are not part of the school committee, I ask that you please keep your videos off until you are called upon, and as well keep yourself muted. I ask that there please not be any chats in the, oh, maybe there's no chats anymore. Okay, good. But anyways, no chatting during the meeting. And with that said, we're gonna go ahead and move forward with, I have your student showcase, but I don't have anything on there at this time, but I'm sure we have some sort of presentation.
Yes, so if the school committee recalls, in the last meeting, we celebrated 2 of our students who received the Certificate of Excellence, State Certificate of Excellence. So we have one student who is here to be honored at the request of the school committee to be coming back to celebrate their success, as well as introducing the 2 student reps. So I'm gonna ask Dr. Mahoney and his admin team, who will present the student who received the certificate as well as the student reps.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vasquez. Kara, Shaddai, and Sam, if you guys want to turn your cameras on now, and Mr. Gates as well, Alan Gates. Ladies and gentlemen of the school committee, I will reintroduce Kara McGinnis, one of the 2 seniors who Dr. Vasquez recognized with the Leadership Award at the last school committee meeting. And then campus principals, Ms. McKenna and Mr. Gates, will introduce the representatives from the North and the Dean campus for this school year school committee. And after I sing Kara's praises, Kara, I'd like for you to maybe talk a little bit about what your forward plans are for post Holyoke High School, and then if the school committee has questions for Kara. You may remember Kara was working at the last school committee meeting. Kara McGinnis has touched just about every single activity and experience that you can touch at Holyoke High School. She is an athlete, she is a scholar, she is an artist. She has been in our musicals and she has been on the stage for our drama productions. She is one of our muralists. She has taken multiple advanced placement classes. She's taken a grip of dual enrollment and early college classes. She is the student when Miss McKenna is organizing tours of Holyoke High School, and she gets up and she starts speaking to rising ninth graders about all the opportunities that are available. She makes me tired, not just listing all the opportunities that are available, but all the opportunities that she has actually taken advantage of. She is very, very much a self-made woman, someone that the student government looks to for really the big perspective in terms of what's good for kids and what's good for Holyoke High School. She loves the city of Holyoke, and it is with great pleasure and gratitude that I present to you Kara McGinnis, the North Campus's #1 ranked student, and very much one of the most amazing ambassadors for our school and for our city. Kara McGinnis, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Mahoney. That was very nice. I'm honored to receive this award. And so for like the future plans, I just plan on going to a 4-year college or university out of Holyoke High.
Hey, Kara. Kara, you may want to try turning off your video. And let's see if that makes your audio any better.
And hopefully I'm in a big city, and yeah, I'm just really thankful for what Holyoke's given me, so hopefully I get into bigger colleges I'm looking forward to. Sorry, can you understand it better now?
Much better.
What can you do anything? It's the internet. It works now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I just want to say thank you for the award. It's a great honor. And then in terms of my future plans, I just am planning on going to a 4-year college to receive my bachelor's, and I hope to study business. I'm not sure exactly what school I want to go to yet, but I do have a few I'm looking at now, and I'm thankful to God for preparing me for that.
Thank you, Kara. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you, Kara. Is there anyone from the school committee or any members that have any questions or comments for Ms. McGinnis? Well, I want to personally thank you for everything that you're doing, all the hard work that you're doing, and how you're helping other students, especially our rising ninth graders. Keep doing what you're doing, and I wish you all the most success in your future and career. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great. So now it's my, again, I'm grateful and honored to have Lori and Al introduce 2 power sophomores who are poised to represent and bring student voice onto the school committee this year. I'm going to go with Ms. McKenna first. She'll and then we'll turn it on over to Mr. Gates. Lori, you're up.
So I am very proud to introduce Samantha Brennan, who will be the school committee representative for the North Campus. Samantha is a 10th grader who is a member of our Community and Global Studies Academy. She is very active as well. She's on the field hockey team, and she is in student government. And one thing that I think is going to make her very good for this role is last year, even as a 9th grader, she came to my office several times when she wanted to see something happen in the school and advocated for it to happen. I was like, this girl is on fire as a 9th grader, bringing up things that she wants to see happen. She's going to be a great leader for the North Campus in our school, as well as on the school committee. So Looking forward to seeing her representing North Campus.
Sam, this is a moment. Sorry, I just want to, Sam, if you have a brief and brilliant anything that you want to say to your future colleagues on the school committee.
Thank you, Mrs. McKenna, for those kind words. I'm excited to be here tonight. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Okay, Mr. Gates, all you.
Thanks, Dr. Mahoney, and welcome. Congratulations, Sam. Just want to start, by recognizing Javon Perez. He was our school committee rep from last year. The Dean campus did a great job, and we are excited to have Shaddai Mota Puello join us. We just finished our interview process, and Shaddai was able to answer rapid fire questions about taking on this role. Shaddai comes to us as a very, she's somebody who questions everything. And
true.
Yeah, and so she will, she pushes because she wants Dean to be the best that Dean can be. And I believe that she will carry student voice with open ears and an open mind. And I'm really excited to see Shaddai fill this role. I know that she's going to take it very serious. And thank you very much. Shaddai, you're up.
Sorry, I'm having computer issues here, but yeah, I'm happy to be here, and I hope that you're all safe and well during this pandemic, and that you're all staying safe. And thank you for this opportunity to be here and be able to talk to you guys tonight.
And just a final note, Shaddai is in our programming and web design shop, and her teachers have recognized her as a budding star in that field. And so we're delighted to have her representing the vocational side of Holyoke High School. Dr. Vasquez, the wheel is yours.
No, thank you, and welcome, Samantha, Shaddai.
So real quick, I also would like to welcome Miss Brennan and Miss, is it Puello or Puello? Shaddai. Is she still here?
Puello, my Wi-Fi is also.
I'm sorry, what was that again? Puello?
Puello.
Puello, okay. Welcome, I want to make sure that I get your name right. I don't want to mess that up. I want to welcome you both to the school committee. You're going to enjoy this. I mean, and I love the fact that you ask and question everything. That's what we're here to do. We want to ensure equitable education throughout our district for all our students. We do have a question and a hand raised by Mr. Sheehan.
Yeah, hi, welcome. I just want to stress the importance to Shaddai and Samantha as a former student rep on the school committee, and I think that the mayor was also a student rep during his time at Holyoke High. The extreme importance of this role. We are extremely unique as a Commonwealth that it's written in our Mass General laws that there can be a student rep on a school committee. I mean, this is not something that is widespread in all 50 states, and the importance that you truly are a voice for the students. So when there are concerns, when there are issues, when there's questions, that you openly and freely bring them up as a member of this committee. And it is so important to the students that you represent that you feel empowered to do that and to speak your minds. And also feel free, I mean, if there are topics that we are talking about and you want to add something in, raise your hand in Zoom just like any other member, and you have the ability to ask those questions. If you have watched meetings in the past or seen meetings in the past, we've had some really dynamic student representatives that have really brought some issues to the forefront. So don't be shy. Feel free to reach out to anyone if you have questions, or even former reps. I would really encourage you to reach out to the reps from last year if you have questions for what your role is. Miss Brunette was from Hoyoke High North was a great asset, and so was the gentleman from the Dean campus. I mean, I really encourage you to be a voice for those students and speak out.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Is there anyone else from the committee that has any questions or comments for either Ms. Brennan or Ms. Puello? See, Ms. Tensley Williams, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, I really appreciate them for coming tonight. And I'm so sorry that I can't see them in person, but I'm looking forward to working with them in the near future. So you guys keep up the good work, and we're proud to have you.
Thank you, Ms. Tensley Williams. I'm not sure if Mr. Collmore has anything to say or add.
Mr. Collmore, if you press *6, you can come off of mute.
Okay. Well, again, no, sorry. Well, again, thank you. And welcome to the Holyoke School Committee. It's going to be a pleasure to have you. You are a member, and you can actually keep your screens on. Your face, your video, oh my gosh, your video on. You can keep it on because you are part of the school committee. And not sure if you have anything to share with us today on your first day of being introduced. But if you'd like to share something, Ms. Brennan, about any updates or any news on school, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so I'm in student government and I'm the treasurer for the class of 2023 this year and my freshman year. And so we're trying to make the remote atmosphere as fun as we can since we're stuck with the pandemic and remote learning. And so what we've been doing is usually there's A through G blocks. And so this year we've got A, B, C, D, and then E, F, G. So we've got a filler block, which we are now calling it squad. And so we are now doing this fun set of challenges. They're called Squad Olympics. And this is what we're doing. Like we had just started it, and it's like teachers and students, and we're going head to head with like trivia and like fun things for the kids to do. So that's one thing that's an update from the North Campus that everyone's really excited for, that we're going to make school a lot more fun from the remote like home.
Awesome, thank you. And how about you, Ms. Puello? Do you have anything to share for the Holyoke High School Dean campus?
So we're working on after school support for the students that actually go to Dean. And so we have like 50 students that we think would actually be able to come. And we're working on trying to get more students to be able to do the work because we have issues with the Chromebooks, and all the students can work with them and they're having technical issues. So we're trying to get it so we can get more students to work in person in school. And that's something that we're trying to get at.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Great. Well, again, welcome. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Is there any public comment, Ms. LaFond?
No, Ms. LaFave, we did not have any public comment.
All right, great. So then moving on, we're going on to communications and reports. First on the agenda is MCAS and access testing for the 2020-2021 update. That's all you, Mr.
All right, thank you. Just a couple of updates, and I want to start with the MCAS and the access update. DESE recently shared some initial guidance with the school district around MCAS and access testing. They are currently planning for in-person assessment administration for both MCAS and access testing. We at the district level have already begun planning and making sure that we carefully develop a plan and testing schedule for in-person testing. There are also ongoing conversations between our chief academic officer and folks from DESE around possible accommodations as it relates to testing in person, especially when it comes to the access testing. So we continue to work around the guidance and making sure that we allow our students to have access to the testing and the testing calendar. I'm going to ask Mike, too, if you can show my PowerPoint. Thank you. So as we talk around testing schedules, I'm going to ask our Chief Academic Officer, Ms. Vernier, to kind of address some of the highlights as it relates to both MCAS and access testing for the district, and what would that look like?
Hi, everyone. Happy to join you today. We probably all have more questions than answers, but we'll tell you what our planning looks like what Dr. V was talking about. Right now, in the slides, thank you, Mike, you can see some of the highlights for MCAS. The high school window is fast approaching. Dr. Mahoney and his team has begun to plan what this might look like. I will be joining their planning meetings starting, I believe, this week. He and I have met just to do a quick overview of what's currently taking place. It's important that grade 10 or grade 11 and 12 are coming in first, and that's to allow them the opportunity to earn their competency determination because of last year's testing being canceled. So I know his team is working hard for that right now. We are assuring that all of our accommodations are being planned for, and that will be reflected in the schedule that we actually implement for assessment. I would think that most of the questions or some of the comments will be around the high school schedule, since that's coming up so quickly. The 3 through 8 assessment schedule will be in April and May, and of course we are hoping that we are already back in person, in that will help support the planning process for grades 3 through 8. Access, we are in conversations. A lot of districts are looking for some answers and asking for clarification from the Department of Education right now. Currently, all students in grades K through 12 do have to take the access assessment in person. And so Ann Day, the director of ESL, will be working with the schools to help develop a schedule that will best meet students' needs and maintain social distancing and protocols in place. We have not begun that planning, but those meetings are getting scheduled in the coming days. The next slide kind of gives you a little bit around the planning process, which we just spoke about. So the health and safety first and foremost. So all of our safety protocols absolutely 100% will be in place. And we also want to ensure that we have our accommodations and that schedules are designed around those accommodations. A lot of the more general accommodations are already built into MCAS assessment in the way that you set up the program through the TestNav programming. So what we're talking here about making planning for is students who need the assessment read to them or require one-on-one administration or very small group administration. We are looking to make sure that those are scheduled out and planned for first, and that will be reflected in a schedule. So for example, students who require more accommodations and we have to spread them across the building in more classrooms would be assessed, would have a different assessment schedule than those who do not require those accommodations. So we're making sure that all of that is being met. And again, this is in the beginning planning phase. We're really going to ramp up planning. Dr. Mahoney and his team have ramped up some of the planning at the high school because that is coming down the pike first.
Question.
You have a question, Ms. Tensley Williams?
Yes. For the in-person, the kids are going to go into the school to take the test. How are they going to get there? Are they going to be busing them there, or are the parents responsible to get them into the school?
That's a good question. No, we will provide the regular transportation as we would according to the transportation policies. So if the students are allowed to take transportation and qualify for that, we would be running the buses. So we'll be working with transportation. At the high school, that's usually through bus passes. And so Dr. Mahoney and his team will work with transportation. They'll have time and in their schedule where the bus passes would be available for pickup. And just like we would do any other school day, transportation will be provided.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to pause and see if there's any questions specifically around the earlier assessment window or MCAS, or if you want to go forward and just look at the grades 3 through 5 and access testing.
So we have, I do have two people with their hands raised. I have Mr. Sheehan first.
Yeah. First, I didn't see this in the packet. Can we get a copy of this presentation sent to us?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, Liz, can we get that? I'm just trying to take notes on it now. And also, what do you mean by bus passes?
So at the high school, we run just a few regular school buses. The students at the high school level take the public transportation buses, and they're provided with passes from that bus. If Dr. Mahoney is still on, he could probably provide you more direct information on that.
Yeah, do we actually think that's safe? I mean, PVTA doesn't have to meet any type of social distancing requirements that we do, and I just can't imagine throwing a bunch of our students that we are saying have to go into school is the best option and the safest option to our school community. I mean, at least with our own transportation systems, we can actually do contact tracing. I can't imagine when you think about a PVTA bus, there's, I mean, limited to no ability to provide any contact tracing. I mean, have we thought about that? Have we talked about, I don't see how it's even a great viable option just throwing a bunch of students on the PVTA PVTA does not meet the standards set forth by ESE on school transportation, I don't believe.
Mr. Sheehan's concerns are 100% legit. We have not yet sat down with Anthony Soto and his department to really think through the transportation piece. So I think that we haven't planned or signaled to anyone what the transportation services will be for kids and during the testing. To first think through, how many kids we're testing, when we're testing, and then once we have those flights in mind, we work with Anthony to see what we can, what makes sense based on health and safety guidelines and based on budget constraints.
Well, I mean, so here's the thing, though. I know you say based on budget constraints, but I mean, there's a part of this, though, that we also have to go to the state on. I mean, this is extraordinary times. And I mean, if the state is pushing this ridiculous model to require this, I mean, you can't tell us that you have to put kids on a school bus and space them out this way, but then say, you know what? So they can take the MCAS, throw them on the PVTA or throw them on public transportation and throw all rules out the door. I mean, it does not seem to be creating a safe environment. And I mean, our job is to protect the safety of the entire school staff. So I hope that sooner rather than later, Anthony can come up with a budget and we can see what this is all about, because I don't even see how the Board of Health thinks this is a good idea by bringing students in on PVTA.
Yeah, Mr. Sheehan, we would be working, that's the next thing we need to speak about. We're just an initial draft form of our planning. We are absolutely going to make sure that we're maintaining appropriate safety precautions. And so if the Board of Health, who we are partnering with, and they would have to take a look at our plans, would say this is not going to work, then we wouldn't do it. We absolutely would not do it. And so we will work a schedule as best we can and work with transportation with Anthony's team and Dr. Mahoney's team to make sure that we're putting together the most appropriate transportation plan as possible.
And overall, so with the ESE guidance, they actually allow district-sponsored transportation on public transportation and don't require any type of safety protocols?
For public transportation?
So I mean, ESE has put out a wide range of transportation protocols if we're using our own school buses. Like students have to sit in a certain spot, they have to be this far apart, windows have to be open at certain time, all these things.
Right.
So, but in their written protocols for reopening, they also say if you want to pay for bus passes or subway passes or whatever it may be, you can do that and everything's out the window?
No, it's an option for students to participate in public transportation and provide them bus passes. It's an option for the families to make that choice. Now, what safety protocols does the public transportation have or not, depending on the city or the town, I do not know. I think that's a great question to ask. I think going back to your initial comment, Devin, around access to transportation for safety because it's safer for our students. I don't think anyone's arguing that. I think one of the concerns we have as a team is the financial challenge around making transportation available for all our students, knowing that we might have to have 3 to 4 additional routes because of the safety measures. Now, I think you bring a valid point that this is one of the things that when we started to have these conversations in our own networks and conversations with state reps around, how to have access to additional financial support or dollars as it relates to not only just transportation, but also sometimes requires additional staffing. And so these are the conversations we're having in the planning. And this is the conversation about transportation also is surfacing as we talk around our hybrid model. And the concern that Anthony would bring to the table is, the cost factor to adding additional routes because we would have to meet the social distancing protocols as it relates to transportation.
Thank you.
I have Ms. Burks.
So I actually agree with everything that Devin had to say. And I think that they're all valid conversations. But really, when I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking like, oh my God, who had the bright idea to bring up MCAS in the middle of a pandemic when we gave less than stellar opportunities to students in the spring when this pandemic started. It hasn't been easy since the school year started in September. And we're talking about adding stress to these kids and these families and these teachers with throwing MCAS back into this mix. And it's absolutely mind-blowing to me. We're in the middle of a pandemic and these kids have lost a lot of their educational time. And it's a stressor. And it's not a little stressor, it's a huge stressor for our staff, for our families, and for our students that they don't need in the middle of a global pandemic. Holyoke's numbers are through the roof right now. And it's just one more stressor that no one in this community needs. The busing is one whole piece of it, but the MCAS in itself right now, we don't need. We need to figure out a way. And if this is something that the department is going to say it has to happen, then we need to start vocalizing to our families that they can opt out. They have the right to opt out of it because no one should be having more stress put on them in this current situation, especially when it comes to a test. So that's my thought.
I also have Mr. Wellahan. Mr. Wellahan, are you still with us?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. We've been talking about the busing for months. I've been kind of raising the issue in terms of the additional funding necessary for the busing. We all kind of knew this day was coming in terms of the busing, the additional expenses. So, I mean, the money, just to provide, our children to be safely bused to school, that's important. I agree with Mr. Sheehan. The PVTA, I'm not really for that. There's no bus monitors there. Who's getting on those buses? Who's getting off? Who knows? So the safety issue, I got a problem with that. Thank you.
Ms. Tensley Williams, I hear your phone going off and back on. Did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, ma'am. I totally agree with what has been said so far. And to the MCAS, like Ms. Burke said, is kind of, they need to schedule that for another time. It is too much for the kids. And like Mr. Sheehan said, there's not much safety with the PVTA. So everything that's been said already, I'm all for it. Do we have the money for the buses, and where would we get the money? What would we have to do to raise it?
Oh, did somebody want to answer that? I'm not sure before I call the next person that has their hand raised.
I have Mr. Soto on with me. I can start the conversation, but Mr. Soto can add additional context. So we do have a transportation budget based on a traditional year with additional dollars allocated for the additional routes. So when we did the initial planning back in August with the 3 different models, transportation cost was included in those models. However, any type of fluctuation of increase in enrollment, increase of participation in a program, because remember that the plan allowed families to have choice whether they wanted in-person, hybrid, or completely remote. So depending on the change of participation of in-person or hybrid and lessen the remote, will change the transportation budget based on the participation numbers, which we did not have initially, because in the beginning, if you remember the survey that we did in the initial planning, many of the families who participated in and answered the question around transportation did not even feel comfortable accessing our public school transportation at that time. And so that would be a question that we would have to kind of ask our families once again as we plan out testing, as well as what would be the next phased approach for learning for our district.
Thank you.
Mr. Soto, I don't know if you want to add additional context to that.
Yeah, I'll just add that so we will have some savings this year in our transportation budget, and we will have the ability to to add more buses if need be, or pay for more routes if need be. The biggest concern that I have is that right now in Holyoke, we have about 26 big buses. That's what we've been running for the last 3 or 4 years. And, if our part of our model during regular schooling pre-pandemic has been for the high school to utilize public transportation. And I'm well aware that there's some safety concerns there. My biggest concern is the bus company if we need more than 26 buses, the bus company being able to accommodate that. And also they have laid off, furloughed a lot of their drivers and monitors who may have taken additional work. So as part of our planning process, it's going to be me working with the bus company to make sure that they can accommodate our needs. Making sure that we have enough buses in Holyoke available for our use, and that they have the bus drivers and monitors ready to staff those buses. So those are, I'll be speaking to Mahoney about, and our schedule has to also be take into consideration what we have. But, part of the guidance with DESE, as Dr. V alluded, is serving families and doing, even encouraging some families that can, even though they qualify for busing, families that can bring their kids or make arrangements to get their kids to school. We want to encourage that. But really nailing down how many students we need to transport, and then gathering around and working with our partners to make sure that we can do it safely.
Okay, thank you. I have Mr. Sheehan.
So what were the dates again of the January administration for this?
The January administration for 10th and 11th, for 11th and 12th grade students, the window is January 15th through February 5th.
Pretty much right in the middle of the access testing window too, right?
Yes, and that's what we're going to have more, in my opinion, a little more difficulty planning for. So that access window, you're correct, is pretty much the same. But we do have we're going to have to do some individual planning. We're going to pull the student rosters first to see who has to take the access testing. It's approximately roughly 30% of our student body between K and 12. At the high school level, we want to get the MCAS schedule first, and then we'll schedule around that. We'll kind of fill in the gaps with access that way. The ESL department, led by Annie Day, will start to meet individually with schools to looking at their rosters and seeing who has to come in. We'd also be at the same time working with Anthony's transportation team around, here are the students that have to test, and then they would go through those lists by school to see who qualifies for busing. And then we'd have to start trying to figure out transportation with them. Again, it's a little trickier than just that though. It's not like running the regular routes, because we would have to identify who's actually being assessed at each school, and then what their assessment schedule would impact the busing schedule. So if I'm not going to run the same students every day during that testing window. You're going to run cohorts through different days, dependent on how we schedule the students in the classrooms for the assessments with the staff and maintaining all of our safety protocols.
Yeah, and I have more questions. I know we haven't gotten to that yet, but and just so people know, with this whole like MCAS offering it or not, I mean, I think a big part of it is on the shoulders of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, the commissioner, but they can do nothing until the federal government acts. I mean, they are administering this because they are required to by accountability standards from the U.S. Department of Education. So just know this, I mean, this decision is not fully on the shoulders of the state. I mean, I think that a lot of it is there with advocacy and need from them, but it is also the federal government saying, you have to do this.
I think it's important to realize that there was a small asterisk in all of the documents that we received around the assessment, which just came out. MCAS came out maybe 2 weeks ago with a little more information. Access was just a little bit of that original memo, and we're looking for further guidance from the state on that. And they're still trying to figure out what that looks like as well. But the schedules could be amended or revised based on public health situations. And so, like anything else since last March, this is kind of, we're planning with the best case of what we know now, but we know that this could change 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It could change right up before the January window opens. And so we just want to make sure we're planning as best we can for what we know currently.
Question.
Okay. Hold on one moment, Ms. Tensley Williams. I've been looking here at the panelists and the attendees board, and under the attendees board, I see a hand raised, but that would be Ms. Brunel. Okay, Ms. Brunel.
Hey guys, I apologize for my tardiness on this meeting. I'm just joining in, so if it's okay, Mildred, if you can call on everyone else and come back to me, because I don't want to be repetitive, so I'm trying to get caught up on exactly where the conversation is, and then I'll jump back in.
So all I have left is Miss Tensley Williams. I was going to call on her again. but just a recap of really the bigger issue is in regards to transportation, especially at the high school level, where the schools would be providing the students with bus passes, meaning the PVTA bus service, which again is not regulated. It's not, they don't have regulations as to what they have to do in regards to social distancing, ensuring mask wearing, which I've seen myself, people on the bus without masks. So it's really revolved around that. Ms. Burks did mention, you know, that if this is a must do, then it's more about being advocates or vocalizing to families that they also have their rights as well, and that's the right to opt out. So did you want to hear further? Do you want me to call upon Ms. Tensley Williams first and then come back to you?
No, I'm good. I can jump in.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, so I know some people in the new administration are new to some of us here on the school committee. I have always been an advocate against standardized testing to begin with. So it's going to be no, excuse me, my cat walked across the keyboard. It's going to be no surprise to hear that. I think, with all due respect to our district, I know that we're, you know, our hands are tied with planning for the MCAS, but I think this is absolutely ridiculous. I think that there's no way we can expect anyone in this district to feel comfortable sending their child to school simply to take a test. And if we can make the building safe enough for them to come take a test, then that means we can make the building safe enough for them to go to school. You know, this is absurd, in my opinion. I have been discussing this with other parents at my own children's school, and most people will opt out. And I think it's very unfair to put this kind of pressure on students who already had a 6-month gap. So never mind the pressure and the stress that our younger students are feeling. What about the students with special needs? What about the students with IEPs? What about the students that simply just don't test well? You know, let's focus in on our high school kids. Our high school kids, this is a graduation requirement for the state of Massachusetts. So what I want to know is, as a district, what are we doing to advocate with the state to ensure that the MCAS requirement possibly gets waived as a graduation requirement for this coming school year? It is highly unlikely that our children will get to step 1 foot into a building in the 2021 school year. That is a likely fact. We get emails from central office on a daily basis with multiple 5, 6, 7, 8 COVID cases across the district. My own 2 children are positive for COVID and I'm home quarantining. There is absolutely nothing we can do right now to ensure the health and safety of our students and or our staff, simply to force a test upon them that they're not going to be ready for because of no undue circumstance of their own. They missed out on a solid 6 months of their education. It is absolutely absurd that the federal government, the state government, and, you know, forcibly hand down to us, our local government, is expecting our students to be forced into this situation. We're setting them up for failure, we're setting them up for stress, and we're setting families up for illness. It's the fact that we're even discussing how to, I feel like, honestly, that we're wasting the energy of folks at central office whose time and effort can be better spent planning other things than planning for something that we all know likely is not going to happen, especially not in January. How? How could we possibly do this and make it safe? It's not realistic. So we need to be focusing on advocating with the state to get this waived. There's no possible way to do this in person. There's no way to provide safe transportation. There just isn't in the current state of the COVID crisis.
Ms. Brunel, I appreciate your comments and your passion behind this. And I just want you to know that we have been advocating our concerns with the state, along with our colleagues in other districts across Massachusetts. And so we're hoping for updates down the road. Right now, we just want you to know that if this is still what we have to move forward with, we're planning accordingly and trying to do the best we can. No one wants to bring back children for the pure focus of just taking an assessment. It's against what we would prefer to do for sure. And so we'll continue to advocate, and we are joined by educators and leaders across Massachusetts doing the same thing. So we appreciate your passion behind this.
I would also like to comment that if fellow school committee members would be in agreement, I'd like to set a motion that we send a letter to our local legislature on the state and Senate level and whoever else needs to get involved. I know that the Massachusetts Association of School Committee voted on addendum regarding MCAS testing just last week at the delegate assembly. And I just think the more support that they hear from formal associations, the better. So Mildred, if I don't know if that's a time and a place to like put that on the record now, but you know, as a committee, I would highly recommend that we send some sort of a letter to the state legislature and DESE in trying to encourage that, you know, whatever language we need be, that MCAS doesn't even need to happen this year, never mind be waived.
So well, first I would need a second on it, but I do have to emphasize that it's very important that even as individuals, members ourselves, school committee members across the Commonwealth, as well as families, parents, reach out to their legislators. Because again, this has to be changed from their end. It's not something that can just be changed by DESE itself. In regards to the graduation requirement. So I would need a second.
Second.
Okay, so that's a second from Ms. So the motion from Ms. Brunel is for the school committee members, so the Holyoke District school committee members, to send a letter urging, are we saying urging? Are we saying requesting?
Urging. As strong as the language as we can come up with.
So we're urging our legislators, correct?
I would say as a member here, I'm comfortable with you drafting that letter on our behalf, Mildred, with as far as the wording and knowing what we all want for that.
I would agree with Devin on that point.
All right, so we're not going to spill all the beans right now on air. So what we'll do is, though, we do have to vote on that. So if we could have a roll call vote, Ms. LaFond on the motion, seconded by Mr. Wellahan.
You can. Mayor Morris?
Yes.
Ms. LaFave?
Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Ms. Brunel?
Yes.
Tinsley Williams?
Yes.
Mrs. Burks?
Yes.
Mr. Wellahan?
Yes.
Mr. Collmore? Can you knock it off mute? Mr. Cushane?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that passed unanimously. So we'll get the letter drafted, and then we'll have everybody, I guess we'll sign through the email and send it off to our legislators, Senator Velas and Representative Aaron Vega before he leaves.
Mildred, if I can make one more point before you move to the next.
No, absolutely. Go right ahead.
I would just like to thank, you know, I don't want to come off as though I'm not appreciative of the work that our district is doing. I know, like, you know, like we did say, this is not our choice. This is a mandate put down on us. And I understand that you guys are doing your best and putting the effort in to come up with a plan that you think will be the safest possible. So please don't take my comments as a disregard for the efforts being done on the local level.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brunel. I know I just had several other people. I know I kept hearing Ms. Tinsley Williams. Do you still have a comment or a question?
I think it's gotten cold now. However, I don't want to be redundant, and I hate to keep going back to old things. However, I want to know if they have a sterilization team in order for those kids to have those buses sterilized before they get on. That's the only question I have.
Yes. Yes, the bus company is following all protocols, and buses will be cleaned on a daily basis, at least twice a day. Anytime we ever have students on buses, they will be we'll be sure to follow DESI's guidance, which would maintain, you know, one person per bench, you know, keeping the windows open, and you know, in some cases it'll be you know, even further spread apart depending on how many riders we have on the buses. But as much as we can spread students apart on buses, that's what we're going to do.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. Thank you, Ms. Tensley Williams. And I do remember I did see Mrs. Burke's hand up. Ms. Burks, did you still want to comment or have a question, or was everything answered?
So Valerie, I just wanted to say thank you for, you know, stating that you guys kind of feel the exact same way that we do, and that you are fighting for the same things and the same beliefs that we have. So I did want to say thank you for actually, you know, speaking that so people are aware. I think a lot of times people assume that the district isn't always fighting on our behalf. So I just think that it's important that you said that. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And then Anthony, I have a question for you in regards to the busing. So you just stated that they would be one child per bench and the windows would be open. We're looking at this time frame of being January, you know, which is typically like sub-zero. So how are we going to have kids on a bus with windows open in the freezing cold? Like,
we're asking everyone to dress warm.
I mean, Anthony, the truth of the matter is we have a lot of students that our staff members supply coats and gloves and hats every year, and warm clothing. So I just, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around this process, but I'm also being really mindful of the facts of our city, and knowing that kids already don't come dressed properly. And now we're talking about putting them on a bus in sub-zero temperatures with windows open. I just don't get it. It's not something that's processing well with me. So those were one of my questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will say that it wouldn't be the first time we had to cancel in-person school if we had sub-zero temperatures like that. I think that this, knowing, you know, given the current conditions that we're in, those are things that are going to be considered when we have extreme weather like that. But right now, the guidance is we have to follow the guidance, and, you know, we're encouraging students to bundle up. But if it's safer for us to keep air going in and out of the bus and keeping fresh air coming in, we just have to make sure we're following the guidance. So I hear you, but I'm sure that, you know, if we have one of those days where there's sub-zero temperatures, that's something Dr. Alberto Vasquez Matos is going to consider when we have to make the call to either cancel school for the in-person school for that day or not.
Thank you, Mr. Soto.
So I thank everyone for the questions and for giving the feedback. We're pretty aligned and appreciate your passion, and we know that it's your duty to advocate for the students in the community of Holyoke, and we appreciate that as well. So I think the slides that were here we've covered all of them, even though we didn't get to them. And so we'll keep you posted with what our planning is and what we hear from the state as well as we move forward. And just know, like you, we want to ensure that students are getting the best educational that they can in person or remotely, and that we will ensure all safety protocols are in place. The team has been really diligent about that, and we will continue to do that. So appreciate you giving so much time to this tonight.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And although you did not go through it all the way, I just want to also remind that if we could please get a copy of that for the members of the board so that we can as well have that presentation and we're able to review it.
Yeah, I think you'll see that all of the comments we had do cover the few slides that were in there for talking points. And so appreciate that. We'll make sure you get that.
Thank you so much.
But I also had to request access for everybody, so it may take a little bit before you have it.
Sounds great. And I do see we have a hand up, Mr. Sheehan.
Oh yeah, I had a number of questions about access testing with this that I guess I'll just ask. I was able to open up the presentation, so I'm looking at that right now. So
we can move to that slide if you want.
Oh, and I mean, I can just ask my question. I mean, I think the testing protocols are the same. It's just a few questions that I have. So just so, I mean, so everyone understands at home and stuff, access testing is what we give to our ELL students so they have the ability to show if they've made progress. And basically to say, like, if they need ELL services in the future, if they need more ELL services, or if they can stop having ELL services and or get reduced ELL services. So, I mean, there are families that are going to choose not to have their child go to school. I mean, just with remote learning in general, that are going to be 100% remote. We know that. There may be some that choose not to bring their child in for testing, and that's okay. And I mean, the state guidance on these tests is mark the student absent. I mean, there's no accommodation. It's just mark them absent if they don't appear for the test. So that's a student who would then still be in ELL services the year after, whether or not they need it or not, and hurt the district's accountability, since that's what we're looking at. Now, I'm just wondering, as far as access, now, when you talked about scheduling, access is different than MCAS. I mean, you sit for MCAS and you can take it and then you come in for the different component of it. With access, there's 3 components you take on 3 different days, correct?
Right, there are, and we think they're going to have a little bit of leeway with how we schedule it, but you're right, you do a speaking, listening, and writing component to the assessment. It's usually done in small group or individually. Last year, the assessment was revised that the speaking and listening component is done through the computer. It used to be where the teacher would administer it, and now those components have been digitized. And so, yes, it takes a little bit more. It's going to take, I believe, a little bit more in creativity to get a schedule that would work. If in fact we have to do it in person. If
I'm correct, you can only test for the speaking 6 students at a time in a building, right?
Yes. Well, six students at a time with a test proctor. So if we decide to have other staff who are trained and go and help a building, then that's how we could do it. It's typically our EL teachers are the ones who administer the assessment. And so if we have the ability to have more than one EL teacher, which we do in some of our buildings, they can both be administering it in separate small groups.
Okay. So with that though, I mean, part of the early year access testing also has a number of manipulatives and consumables, right? Has there been guidance that's been put out about the teacher touching something, putting it down, and making the student also touch that?
There is not additional guidance right now from the state. We did have a memo come out last week, about midweek, that did not have more detail. They're currently working on that. We know that internally we want individual sets of manipulatives for students who are in person, and we have a sanitizing component if they were to be shared. And so that will be taken into consideration when we are developing the schedules. All of the testing materials have been ordered, and they have posted this week and into early December. There's some test proctoring or coordinator training through the company that runs Access. So we're currently in that phase of it. And again, we will not begin planning the specifics until the week of November 30th and beyond. And our goal is to begin to have some meetings with schools so that we can provide some initial communication. The first communication might be broad from the district level, not the school level. And our goal is to have some communication out the week of December 7th with a little bit more detail. And then of course, the more explicit communication will be from the schools once we've had those planning meetings to support what this looks like for each school.
And then with all of these cohorts with accommodations, either for MCAS or something like Access, I mean, if students have an accommodation where they have the same test taker, or same test proctor.
Yes.
How, I mean, is that even feasible?
That's what our planning is going to determine, but we're going to have to make it feasible because we're required to make sure that we're meeting those accommodations. And so sometimes we plan for those accommodations first and fill in the schedule around that. So we will absolutely make sure that we are planning appropriately for accommodations first and then the rest of the schedule afterwards.
Yeah, and I think what's important, I mean, at least, okay, let's say there was some give on MCAS with the ability to alter the test schedule or maybe not have a testing of it, or, I mean, really, if it's not, if we're only talking about 10th grade because it's a graduation requirement, I mean, even the younger grades, if a parent chose not to send their kid to school at all, I mean, it's bad they're not taking the test and we don't have the accountability, but it's not based on graduation. I mean, Access could hold a student back. I mean, a student who is not assessed, I mean, would not be able to be flipped in the next year if they change their level. I mean, if they don't take it, I mean, you get once a year. There's no like Access makeup. There's no anything like that the state provides. I mean, I think it really is a disservice, and I can't see how what the state is doing, especially doing it in January and mandating it like this, would not be a civil rights violation for our students. And it really seems like we do so much to provide and to make sure all of our students' rights are protected. And the fact that the Department of Justice would not be saying for the some of our students who are most vulnerable and our students who we need to educate the most, that this would not be a civil rights violation, that they, just because they can't go to school. I mean, you could have a student in quarantine the entire test administration of Access, that even if they wanted to come in, they may be home because they can't. And that's wrong. And I would hope that we at least push back to get the state to allow for a second administration of it sometime in the spring. I mean, to be offering these tests right in the height of flu season, I mean, MCAS is only here because it's the kids who didn't take MCAS in the spring, right? That missed that. I mean, why is there a reason, logically thinking, why Access couldn't be offered in April? Or is it just because we're told it's in January?
I think that's rhetorical because that would be a question for the Department of Ed.
No, I mean like developmentally. I mean, is there any reason why it's midway through a year and not at the, like, is there some sort of actual like educated reason?
Not to my knowledge. I know that there are some screeners along with WIDA that districts can choose to use fall and in the spring, so you can kind of get a sense of where students are. We wouldn't use those types of assessments as a accountability measure. We're more concerned with and focused on where are students' language acquisition skills and how can we use some of the screeners we use to target our instruction to support their development of language skills and accelerate their learning. That said, I don't know why the state chooses I'm unaware, I'm sure there's a reason, but I'm unaware of the exact reason why it's in the middle and not the end of the year, except to say maybe it's because our typical MCAS assessment is in the spring, and that alleviates one more assessment happening at the same time but I'm completely guessing.
I mean, it's probably that. It's probably as simple as that, but I think it's also, I mean, there could be some consideration. So it's not when it's, and I'm sorry, I mean, I don't care if it's 0 degrees out. I wouldn't want to ride on a bus if it was 30 degrees out with the windows down. So whether it's a sub-zero day or not, no one wants to be on that when it's cold. So.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. I'm not sure if anybody else has any comments or questions. I know we do have 2 students here Not sure if they wanted to share their any comments or questions. With that being said, okay, so Dr. Vasquez Matos, I take it you're gonna move to the next subject.
Yep. If Mike can bring
Yours.
up my slide. So the district continues to provide meals at 6 different sites from 12 to 2, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're serving breakfast, lunch, and snack and dinner to all families that come to our sites to pick up food, and we continue to supply those meals for 7 days a week. Our most recent meal participation is about 20%. At the last school committee meeting, we received a lot of information and feedback around the portion and the quality of the meals. And the district quickly started to strategize and respond quickly to those concerns. Mr. Soto and his team have put together a project plan as part of our internal what I call the high-level plans to increase meal participation and the quality of our food while we are operating under the remote model. So I'm going to ask Mr. Soto to kind of give some additional details around the work that is ongoing as it relates to food and nutrition.
Yeah, I don't have a ton more to add than what Dr. V mentioned, but I will say thank you to those school committee members that had brought some concerns to my attention. We really appreciate that. I think that we put our best foot forward when we in responding to this pandemic, and didn't know that it was going to last as long as it did. And now that this is really the model that we're operating for the time being, I know that that we can do. There's things that we can do to make it better. And one of the things that we haven't really done during this school year, given the remote environment, is heard student voice and parent voice. So I know that I'm committed and my team is committed to strategize and find ways to make our menu more appealing to our students while still following our guidelines, the guidelines that we have to follow with the USDA. So we've surveyed where we've tasked the principals with identifying students that would want to participate in an advisory group that would meet a few times this year, and potentially do some taste tests if possible, if we can do it safely, and before we set our menus and do these bulk orders for the upcoming school year, or not the upcoming school year, but the upcoming months, really get students' feedback and see what they like and what they don't like. We're also considering, tapping into a lot of the parent groups that we have already established. We haven't had a chance to meet with them, so we want to make sure that that we're meeting with them virtually and getting their feedback. We're meeting bi-weekly with a group that Aaron Vega has put together, and its focus is on food insecurities in Holyoke and resources. So there's a lot of partners surrounded. We meet on Friday at 2:00 every other week, and I shared with my project plan with them, and they've had a lot of feedback for us. We're talking about partnering with the housing authority so that we can reach groups of students, and for example, Lyman Terrace has a lot of students that the closest site to them would be Kelly or Lawrence, but we're trying to strategize a way. What if we can just get meals to Lyman Terrace? I know that there's a ton of families there that can benefit from that service. There's other strategies that we're considering, including busing, having like a bus go around to different bus stops to see if we could distribute food that way. So those are just some of the ideas that we've been kicking around and that we're going to put in action. We're also looking at our times. So right now we're serving from 12 to 2. So what I'd like to see in the near future is to expand that so that at least a couple of our sites are open from like 4 to 6 or something like that, to get those families that can't quite get to the food sites because they're working full time. We're hoping that that would help boost some of the participation. And that's pretty in your packet. You know, we're going to be sharing this with the community as well. It's going to be translated. Our plan is to do a quarterly newsletter that goes to the school committee and to the general public, just to hopefully get some the word out as to what's going on in our program, what our goals are, and to spur some dialogue and some feedback from the community at large, from our students, from our parents. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Soto.
I see. Thank you, Mr. Soto. Ms. Tensley Williams, I got you. I got some people who've had their hands raised here,
okay.
but I will definitely get to you. So Ms. Burks.
So I'm going to bring this up again. I'm going to try to be as pleasant. I decided not to do a slideshow tonight and put that out there. Look at, I'm going to be 100% honest because I don't know how not to be, but it hasn't changed. We're still getting beef jerky, okay? And I think it was 2 days ago, it was a fish taco. And the fish taco was actually a frozen, you know, fish finger thingy, fish stick inside of, you know, a taco shell. That's it. That was the fish taco. It was a frozen fish finger inside of a taco shell. And I have pictures, like I've taken pictures, but you know, I'm a parent. This stuff is coming home. This is not stuff like, you know, I've got some spies in the school. You know, I'm a mom and this food is coming into my house. My kids are bringing it home and it's going in the trash. So we are wasting our dollars paying for food that is inedible. It's disgusting. And we all said at the last school committee meeting, we would not feed our kids beef jerky. We wouldn't feed ourselves really beef jerky as a dinner. But yet that's still coming home. It's still happening. And that was a month ago. And it's still being, even to this day. And some of the sandwiches that are coming home, like, you can't feed your kid that stuff. It's just not good. Like, it doesn't look appetizing or any of that. I'm going to say, Anthony, I know you. I know that you're working on this. And I also know that you're a money guy. And I know that the district in general is trying, but, you know, we're not reaching that bar. This stuff is gross. It's not edible. It's not okay. And these packets that are coming, it's not good. And I can flood you with pictures. I can do that because I'm not making it up. It's really happening and the kids aren't eating it. And I'm guessing most families are like ours and the stuff's going in the trash. And what's mind blowing is on the days that they're 100% remote, which is Wednesdays, if you look at like the menus and stuff, that's the days the really like good warm meals are coming out for these kids. So that just doesn't make sense to me. I know everybody's doing the best that they can. Get it. I get that we're in a pandemic. But when you start reaching out to people that work and live in Springfield and you see the quality of the food that's going home with those students versus what we're putting out, the distinction is astronomical. It's amazing. And the differences in the food choices that we're giving versus Springfield. So I know it's been a month, and I know, you know, Dr. V, I know that you're trying to change the foods. I know you guys are all working together to try to make it where it's more foods that the families actually do eat, because a lot of these foods are not foods that kids eat. They don't eat seeds. Like, that's not a meal. So I know that the work is happening, but it's not happening fast enough. And B, like, someone please stop sending home beef jerky. That's not a meal. It needs to stop. And it came home again this week. Like it's just not okay. And the fact that we're opening up the packages of food and we're taking out the cheese stick and we're saying, okay, you know, we're going to take out the cheese stick, but now it's dairy free. Like you're taking away food, but you're not replacing it with something else. So we're not looking at those pieces. You know, like I said, I can show the pictures. I know what's happening because it's stuff that's coming in my house. It's going into the garbage because there's no way I would let my kids eat this food. But I also want to say, I know the hard work that's being done. I just think we need to move faster, and we really need to start looking at what we're spending money on, because we are spending money on food that's going to the trash. And I don't see how that's productive or helpful. We should be using the money to buy good quality food. So I'm hoping that you guys will continue the work, and I'm hoping that we can make it better because our kids deserve better. But Dr. V, I'm trying to end this on a positive note and say, I know you're trying, but we got to try harder. So that's as positive as I can get, because it's still not good.
Oh, did you want to go ahead and answer, Mr. Soto?
I just wanted to comment, not necessarily answer any questions. I just wanted to mention that, you know, that whole beef jerky, we did have, you know, as I mentioned, when we started this pandemic, we had to put in a bulk order even to get some food. And that was one of the things that had come in. And we had 3 weeks or 4 weeks left of that food. And we were forced with a decision. Do we continue to serve this, or do we throw away $20,000 worth of food that, and we said, you know what, let's get through this and we continued to serve it. I think once since the last time that we met. So now we're in the process of looking at what we're going to be ordering for the future. We are, you know, things have gotten better in terms of what's available. So that's part of what I was discussing, was the student, you know, getting some student feedback before we undertake like another big order that's going to set our menu for the next month or two. And I will say, you know, there are, you know, I can appreciate what you're saying, but there are 1,000 families that are coming every single day to get our meals. So I don't want to discredit that. And, you know, I get that some of it's being thrown away, but not all of our families are throwing stuff away. Not all of our families have that option. So we're serving at least 1,000 families every day. And we're doing the best that we can. It's the hardest thing about food service is finding, you know, meeting the compliance and what's required for healthy, but also doing it in a way that's palatable to students and finding that happy balance. So clearly with this pandemic, we haven't done that. So that's, you know, that's the hard work that we have ahead of us, is figuring out what our kids want, given the constraints that we have and what's available out there for this food service model that we have.
I want to echo what Mr. Soto is saying, and I think from a city perspective and from a public institution, the service that we're providing to the city of Holyoke to many families throughout the city during this pandemic is impressive. And you know, the last numbers, we have probably given out close to 900,000 meals to families throughout the district that probably would not have access to meals. And just like Anthony highlighted, we partner with shelters and other agencies to making sure that we can provide a meal. And whether, you know, and I understand the sensitivity around, you know, the portions as well as what's being provided of choices. However, it's important that, you know, after that meeting from the last time, I even got a chance to look at the Springfield menu and shared it with Mr. Soto. We actually looked at it together and things like that, and trying to kind of do a phase out approach of the current menu and moving into a menu based on input, stakeholder input. So just know that while there are some, challenges and areas of opportunity, there are also some great highlights that our food and nutrition department have been providing as a service to many families throughout the city. And if it wasn't, I really truly believe if it wasn't for our public school system, I don't know who can actually take that lift up and challenge of making sure families have access to meals.
And I know that we are doing a ton. Like I completely get and appreciate that what we're doing is important. And I get what Anthony's saying for some families that they don't have the option of throwing their food away. But being on the school committee member, being a parent, being actively involved in the schools, like I can't sit here and say that the food that's coming out is okay. And that even though we're doing our best, that this food is okay for these families, it's not. And it's sad that some of our families, that this is all they have. And this is what we're feeding them. This is what we're choosing to send home is beef jerky. So when we're going to talk about our populations of families that need this food, like how can you in your heart of hearts say that this is good quality food that we're giving them? Because it's not. And I guess that for me is what my issue is that, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I feel like, yes, you're helping somebody, but you have to make sure that your help is actually like it's edible, like they're able to live off of it and resource off of it. Like it's important to know that we're giving them quality food. It's not so much about quantity, it's about quality, and making sure that they're getting their needs met, but that the food is edible. So I understand and respect the work. Please do not think that I think that you guys are taking this lightly. I'm just coming as a reminder that we are not where we need to be. And I just want to make sure that our families are getting quality food, and the stuff that currently is coming out. And I know we have excess of food. It's just still not okay. So that's what I wanted to be really clear on.
Miss Brunel.
So I'm not going to be quite as respectful as Miss Burks, because you're good enough is not good enough. So can we please stop saying we're doing our best, because we're not doing our best. This is not our best. If this is our best, then that's a sad day for Holyoke, okay? We, like you stated, are serving a population in need, and they're taking the food because they have to take the food. So I'm not going to give you credit, for the 1,000 meals we're giving, because I think if the people had a choice, they probably wouldn't take the meal. And, we don't all know what's being eaten out of that bag of food. Like, I think more people were reaching out to Mildred and Rebecca than, say, myself. So they had a little bit more intuitive experience with what people were actually eating out of what was coming home. So you need to be more sensitive to the fact that people are taking the food because they have to take the food, right? We are providing an amazing service, no doubt. It's amazing that we're able to provide food, but we're doing our best. No, I'm sorry, we're not doing our best. We have a food contract with a company, and we need to be holding them more accountable. We need to be holding their nutritionists more accountable. We need to be holding whoever's planning the meals more accountable. There needs to be more accountability, or we need to reconsider who our food service provider is, next time around. This is a pandemic. Everyone's dealing with it, but this pandemic did not start yesterday, and we did not start serving the population yesterday. So the time to do better is today, right? Like, we need to stop trying to do better and stop striving to do better for the future. And I'm sorry, but not to harp on the beef jerky point, but, sometimes you got to take a loss and, admit we were wrong and we shouldn't have sent that home. But like, I'm not getting these meals at home. So, I'm not having the firsthand experience like some of the other members are. But I mean, we can't say we're doing our best because we're clearly not. If other districts are able to do better, we're never going to please every child, right? We can't possibly pick a meal that some kid is going to be like, oh my God, yay, I can't wait to eat my broccoli or something, right? Like, we understand that we have to meet health requirements and nutrition requirements, and not every kid's going to like that. But we have to at least stop saying like what we're serving is good enough. Like, it's not good enough. To Rebecca's point, it's not good enough. So I just wanted to harp on some of her points and not re-emphasize those. And then my next thing, I just wanted to discuss and see if we were planning ahead for Thanksgiving break, and what we're looking to send home for Thanksgiving break. Are we planning to offer some extended service through that time off of school, and how we plan to handle breaks coming forward too. We have Christmas coming not too far off, and that's going to be an extended break. So planning ahead and just thinking ahead to how we plan to handle food service during the breaks from school.
Yeah, whenever we have a holiday during the week, we usually we'll usually send meals home, which is, for Thursday and Friday, that would be a lot of meals. Families would be getting it on Wednesday, the Wednesday that they go pick up. And while the district is closing a little bit earlier on Wednesday, we're still going to be keeping the food sites open at their normal times. We'll just be sending more meals home that day.
Okay, thank you. Miss Tensley Williams. Did everybody freeze right now? Is my computer frozen?
No.
Oh.
No, you're fine.
Oh. Okay. Miss Tensley Williams, can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Well, she'll let us know when she wants to speak. Mr. Sheehan.
So, first of all, I don't know if there's any ability to, have we thought about distributing food at all on Friday? Do we have any ability to open that up during the break rather than giving out meals on Wednesday for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
I can take that back to the team and talk to Dr. V about it if that's something that makes sense. I would have to go back to the team and make sure that, there's nothing that violates the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of things that you can provide of substance that can provide that many days with that. And it's just a lot for a family to take home, I think, with that. Look, I think food service, not during a pandemic, food service and transportation are probably two of the really hard things you're going to deal with these things. But I also have to say, I think at times we are going around in circles with this when we talk about food service. And we've had this conversation a lot, and it just doesn't, it seems like some of the comments that things are done certain ways in some places, but it doesn't seem to be the same for Holyoke. And we've just conversation about food service for a long time with Sodexo, with concerns. Like, this last month's meeting wasn't new. It maybe was different types of topics because we were in the middle of the pandemic, but it wasn't a new conversation. And I think it's I applaud them, and I think it's great that we're getting things like some of the capital improvements investments and some of the things like that that are being put into the district. And look, it was a really tough time when we made the transition over many years ago during that summer operating period when we left Chartwells and went right into Sodexo and had to terminate that contract. But I just think that maybe our standards are too high, and maybe that's what I'm hearing, that our standards are just too high of what to expect. But it seems like if I pulled the tapes from every school committee meeting that we've had Sodexo present at and talked about food service, similar topics are still being brought up. And I don't know I don't know if there's a solution to fix that. And we're not going to fix it during this whole pandemic time because we're saying it's the pandemic and we're putting food out that we can. But there really needs to be, like, and I know we're talking about focus groups and these things and that things, but something just doesn't seem to be jiving correctly, because we hear that corrections will be made, but it seems like these issues still come up. And I get it. Like, I fully understand the requirements set forth by the federal government and what the federal government says that students have to have and will get reimbursed for. And I know that they are so rigid. And it's one of the few things that, as our federal government deregulated almost everything else these past 4 years, that food service wasn't touched to make it a little bit easier for all of us. But it just, there's something that doesn't fit, and it's not going to be a discussion that we fix tonight. But I don't want to be sitting here in a year having the same talk. And look, I know that Anthony and the team really pulled off a lot in the past 9 months with what they have done. Absolutely. And as I think Becky was saying, it's no reflection on that, but there's something that just isn't working. And I don't know what it is that it seems like things aren't right. And whether it's really just even our normal food utilization during the school year. I mean, there's always seems to be a problem. So it's just something we need to, as at some point we get back to normal, and whatever that is going to be. Like, I think that it really needs to be a deeper discussion of why either Holyoke standards are up here and we're asking for too much, or why are other communities, because I look at the food service programs in different places across the state, and it doesn't seem to be what Holyoke has. And you look at it even nationally, and it doesn't seem to be what Holyoke has. And it's almost like, why can't Holyoke have that? And it's just this, is it money? Is it what is it? Our districts funding at higher amounts, their food service programs, and supplementing that? I don't know. And the only other thing I will say is that the state has yet to fund for families the October and now November pandemic EBT. So our families that would have gotten it would have only gotten the 15 days or so in September. So I mean, that's something the state is still kind of dragging their feet on. That hasn't been funded yet either for families. So I mean, it's a critical time with food insecurity with those things, but it's really something we need to look at more. And I don't think it's anything that we're going to dive into tonight, because we're going to have the same conversation over and over and over. But it could be beef jerky, it could be sugar, it could be Danish. I mean, you pick a food item, but it just seems like we're having this conversation a lot.
Yeah, and Devin, thank you. And I'll say that the committee's comments around food service have not gone on deaf ears. I mean, it's because of your actions and your pushing that we implemented, breakfast in the classroom across all schools, took the high school from 11% breakfast participation to up to 90%. It's because of you guys pushing that we had a salad bar in every single one of our schools. That's not part of the reimbursable meal. So like, when you guys speak, we listen and we try to respond, and some good things have happened as a result of you guys speaking out about food quality and about our food program. Those are just some of the things that we have done, and they're a direct response to, to some of the concerns that come up in these meetings.
I don't see anybody else's hands up, but I do have a comment. I know, Mr. Soto, when you had mentioned that a lot of our families don't have that option, it kind of hit me in a wrong location. And I'm gonna tell you why. That's like, my interpretation of that is, you know what? You gotta accept what you get. And with that, I have a problem. It's like saying beggars can't be choosy, so take what you're getting. With that, I have a problem. Um, our families, when they come to us because they may need. And what we provide should be the same quality that we would provide to a family that doesn't need. So when I hear of other districts that are receiving better quality food, I think to myself, well, as Mr. Sheehan had said, well, what's the difference with Holyoke? So I'm trying to analyze this. It starts to make me wonder. So is Holyoke like the town that Springfield will get the head of lettuce for, let's say, $1.19, but with Holyoke, we're going to take advantage of them, right? Because they get so much they always need, but we're going to charge them $1.99. So that means we can't get that head of lettuce. We have to get something else that's much less. When I keep hearing about the beef jerkies, I was even thinking to myself, please don't tell me that it's because we overbought when we were even thinking of it. You can't tell me that that was the only options that were available for our community, for our district to purchase for our students, and that all other communities were ordering the same thing, because this is not what I'm hearing across other communities. Not every community bought beef jerky that could last them almost a year. When we were looking at it after speaking from the last school committee meeting, where we talked about that and about the quality of the food, that should have been, well, maybe that beef jerky should have became a snack at that point. So provide something else for our families and give them that as a snack just to get rid of it. I know we keep talking about money, but if I recall in the previous years, we were also saving money that we were able to put money, into purchasing equipment. Am I correct, Mr. Soto, or am I incorrect?
You're correct in stating that money, whatever money that we do make for food service gets reinvested into the program. That's how we're able to buy equipment, add the salad bars to every school, do things
So
like that.
being right now that we really can't do anything with equipment at this point, can we use that money to reinvest into better quality food for our families and for our students? Well, but first our students and then the families when we're sending it home.
Yes,
Why aren't we reinvesting?
That's what we want to do. That's we have a plan. We're
I hear that you
trying
want
to put together a plan to do just that.
So explain to me, how long does a plan take? Because a little over 2 years ago, I remember when we sat down at Lawrence School with the lady, and I believe at that time, it was her and the guy. They came and they talked about what they were planning on doing. And we spoke about also meeting the nutritional needs of students. Not every student has a regular diet. So you have students that may have celiac disease. You may have students that need their food pureed. And we used to tell the parents that they had to provide those meals to their students, which technically they do not have to. But at that time, it is a plan for us to do this. There should have never been a plan at that time. It should have been something that was done. But when they were presenting last month, it was as if, look at what we're doing now. We have specialized diets. So are you telling me it took 2 years or a little over 2 years to finally get these specialized diets? Or was this also, it's on presentation and it's on what you say and how you say it. So if that's what you're telling me, then that's what you're believing me to understand. But if that's not what you were technically doing and you had instituted it a long time ago, then you need to emphasize on that we have been. But instead, they put it as, look at what we just started. And now we want to start incorporating foods that are culturally culturally, when you're looking at culture, competency, whatever you want to, however you want to look at it. That was also talked about over 2 years ago. So, I mean, a lot of this, so when you're telling me it takes time, this is what we want to do, we want to reinvest. Am I looking at another 2 years from now? Or am I looking at something that I am going to see, especially since we don't know how long this pandemic is going to go on for? Before things do start becoming a shortage again and we can't get, what are we doing to make sure that we are in there getting the same foods that our other communities that are providing to our students are getting? Like, how proactive are we being?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, we like I said earlier, like it's the balance between trying to remain compliant and trying to give students, trying to get menu items that are palatable to students is what we've been struggling with. And I'm hoping that we can get more feedback. I'm hoping that in this next year, I can't give you a timetable because we're going to respond to however students respond. So if students aren't eating, we got to make some changes. So right now during this pandemic, students aren't, we're only serving 20% of our students. During the school year, I thought we were doing really well. We're well above 80% for breakfast, well above 80% for lunch. We don't serve snack and dinner during the regular school year. That's just something we're doing now during the pandemic. But if we, we're also seeing regular feedback when we're in session. And I'll be the first to admit, I said it when I opened up, that we haven't done a good job this year in maintaining that interaction with students and that dialogue and getting feedback from students and parents like we have in the past. I'm not sure how to respond to the presentation and having dietary restrictions and things like that. That's not something new. So I apologize if my team, when they presented, made it seem that way, but that's not something new. That's something that we've been doing. We've been doing for a couple of years now and working with the nurses. I would imagine that it's harder now because nurses aren't necessarily in contact with every student that's going or a family that's going to pick up meals at our sites. But the ones that we do know of, and when parents do call up, we want to make sure that they get meals that meet the needs of their children's dietary restrictions. So we hope that, I'm not sure if I answered that question right, but.
So you said you can't give me timelines. You can't give me a date as to when these things can happen, but obviously you have to put in another order, correct?
Yes. Yeah, but what I'm saying is if students don't respond, what if that other order, what if there's another menu item that isn't so popular, and students aren't responding, we're going to take it off the menu, and until we get it right. I mean, I don't think that we're ever going to get to a point where every student is happy with every meal. I'd be sitting here lying to you if that were the case. But we're going to do our best to try to, and I hate to say that again, but what I'm trying to say is that the menu is responsive to how many students are eating and the feedback that we're getting. So one thing I can say is that we'll never, the next time we have to do an order for prepackaged dinners, beef jerky is not going to be on there. The barbecue chicken was what they were calling it when we ordered it. And when it came, it was beef jerky. But, it's going to be, we'll respond with, once we put together the meals and the menu and we see what students like, what they don't like, we'll order it. I mean, there's no way we're going to get 100% student voice on what all kids like, because some students that will be a part of these focus groups might not necessarily represent everyone. but we're gonna, you know, be responsive to them and hopefully get more things that our kids will like. And
So
if we don't like them, we'll change it.
Yeah, and Anthony, I think also it's important for the school committee and the public to understand that there is an action plan for immediate changes as the new menu is being vetted out. And so there will be immediate changes, but there are also strategies around long-term changes on how do we improve our menu, and making sure that student voice is part of it in the selection of the menu. And that's hence, to Mr. Soto's point, the focus groups of students who will actually be part of that vetting of the lunch and breakfast menus for the district. So there is immediate decisions that are going to happen as we're vetting out the new menu, but there's also long-term decisions that will be need to happen as it relates to food services for our students and families.
And I understand that, and I just want to make sure that what people are understanding what I'm saying is, if our neighbors are getting real ground beef and making beef patties, I'm hoping that our families, our students, are not getting the frozen patty, because I'm going to get that for 50 cents a piece. Okay, so it's about equity across the board. Just because we are a district that is higher in numbers and a greater percentage in people of color, does not equate that it's okay for you to give us less. We are entitled to just the same as any other community, rich or poor. So that's all that I have to say. I do have, now, let me go to Mr. Sheehan first.
Yeah, I just have to say, Anthony, I truly appreciate you taking on the ownership and responsibility of all of this. I really do. But kind of what I said before, and this is where it was a perfect example of what you were just saying, where I said I don't understand where some of the disconnect is, because when our food service provider comes in and says they'll be running focus groups, they'll be doing this, like, I know that you're taking the responsibility because it's on your shoulders and you manage food service, but there's something happening over the years where they aren't doing that. And I guess I just have to say it more directly than I was before. There's something that they just aren't doing that we were promised that they were going to do. And it's been in other meetings. And really, I think I really appreciate you saying that this is your responsibility. You are the leader of it. It's your department. They're under you. It's your contract. But it's just something that isn't getting done by the company. And that's what we all just have to own and say, that these problems are not problems that Anthony Soto or the superintendent are going to fix. I mean, there is a systemic problem with the company. And I get these supply chain issues that we heard about, but I mean, I couldn't find anyone else who was having these same supply chain problems, that were getting orders that were so completely different. And I would love it if you could find a district for me that had protein switched out the way that we did, because I just couldn't. When I emailed almost every district in the state to find out, like, did anyone experience these types of crazy things? So I mean, there has to be some ownership, and I know you're dealing with it, but it's just this issue is not, it's on your shoulders, but it's not. I mean, it's a company that I don't know if they're not meeting what they're supposed to be doing, but if there's deficiencies, then it needs to be corrected contractually with that. And if there's problems that aren't being served, and that's more the issue. It's not, I don't think it's a reflection on anyone that works for the district. I think it's more of a reflection that this isn't new. And we've had these conversations, just isn't being corrected. And I don't understand why it's not being corrected. And I was turned off years ago when they were blaming their own company on certain things their company didn't do. Well, I don't see any change, honestly. I don't see how much has changed when things changed, other than some things got prettier and we got some new equipment. I do not see how the Holyoke Public Schools food service program for the end user changed when new management came in.
And just to go off on what Mr. Sheehan had said, now I just lost my train of thought. There you go. There you have it. That's how late it's getting. But yes, Mr. Soto, I thank you for everything. This is not on you. Um, as Mr. Sheehan had said, and as I had mentioned, these are things that were promised a long time ago on things that they were working on. I don't understand why it takes them. And now I remembered they have other contracts across the state. Are those districts as well having those same difficulties obtaining the foods and having to do the switch outs, or was it just Holyoke because it's easier to get over on Holyoke? That's the part where I'm having a problem. And it's in regards to Sodexo and them working with those other districts. Are the issues the same across the board, or are we getting the end of the stick? And I do see Miss Burks has a question, her hand raised.
You know, I'm with Devin, 100% with everything that Devin said. I think, you know, the truth is we need to look at the Sodexo contract and we need to look at what's happening, because they do service other local districts and they are not getting what we're getting. And, you know, I, for one, am tired of Holyoke being the ugly stepsister. You know, we deserve everything every other community is getting, and our kids and our family deserve better. But I also agree that, you know, we have beat this horse pretty much to death. But I'm not going to stop coming at you. If this is the stuff that my kids are bringing home and I'm seeing, I'm going to continue to bring it up because I want to see better for our community. But I do agree with Devin 100%. We need to look at this contract. Something's not right. Something is bad and it needs to change. And we need to stop dragging our feet. And I agree with a lot of what Mildred said, that sometimes you do have to take that little bit of loss, and this isn't okay what we're doing to our families, and we need to change it, and we need to change it now. It needs to be a priority. So I want to say I agree with Devin, but I do feel we need to look at this, and we need to look at it quickly. Thank you.
I also have Miss Brunel, and just a friendly reminder, sometimes we get into what we're saying and we kind of talk really fast, and our interpreters and our translators are having a really tough time keeping up with us. So if we can sometimes talk real slow, that'll be great. Miss Brunel.
Thank you. So to the point of organizing focus groups or surveying kids on menu options, I'd like hard time frames on that if we're relying on that information. So I would like to know when those are happening and when you expect the answers and when you expect to implement the answers from that. But to that point, we're not suddenly serving a new population. We knew what these kids like to eat last year, right? You said yourself, we had 80% participation in in-school meals, I believe was the stat you put out. We know what these kids are willing to eat, Anthony. And again, I second Devin's point. The problem ultimately lies at the level of Sodexo. I second that completely. But we know what kids like to eat, right? We know you have children. Most of the people working at Sodexo who are playing this menu with you have children. We do not need to survey more people to stall and take more time to figure out what they want to eat. We know already. We've been servicing this population year after year. The same kids are coming to our school as were coming to our school last year. Populations flux ever so slightly, but overall, you know the point I'm getting at, right? We know what they're willing to eat. So why can't we just fix the menu and get that changed? And then, you know, we all keep kind of saying like open-ended, like, oh, well, we wonder what Sodexo did or didn't do for their other districts. I would like that in writing. So I'm sure that we as a district can request from Sodexo probably, you know, we want answers. Did you have this problem in the other districts you're serving? And how did you fix it there? And compare what they're giving us versus what they're giving them. Reevaluate the contract. If they're not holding up to the contract, then I know, you know, as a school committee don't have the same rights that we had regarding like all of these contractual obligations, and it relies more on, you know, Dr. Vasquez Matos, but we need to revisit the contract if they're not being held to it. And, you know, contracts are only binded if both parties are being held to what they've agreed to, right? So we need to contractually visit that. But to my middle point there, I would like some kind of reports from Seduxo. And personally, I'm not willing to wait a month until our next school committee meeting. I would like these emailed to the committee within, like, say, the next week. There's no reason why someone in Seduxo doesn't have these data points. If they're running an efficient company, somebody knows what they're doing. They should be able to get Holyoke as a district the information that we need to be improving our services to our students, right? Again, to other committee members' points, we are not the only district trying to provide these services to our community, and other services in other communities are doing it better. So rather than surveying kids on menu options, maybe we need to just get on the horn and be calling our fellow communities and saying, hey, what's working for you? What's your success rate? You know, and getting the points from them and duplicating the system. We're, you know, like I said to my point earlier, we're not 2 weeks in anymore, right? We're months into this at this point, and we have months ahead of us. So I would, yeah, those are my points on this.
Just for the sake of clarity, Ms. Brunel, if you can email Vice Chair the actual request from Seduxo, so me and my team can work on getting those data points.
Sure thing.
Ms. Burks?
So I'd like to put in a motion to get weekly updates in regards to this food service situation, so we can kind of, you know, condense this tonight to try to get some updates as to what's happening. And I'd like to get some updates weekly to say, you know, these are some of the things that are happening to make the changes moving forward, you know, so that we can also follow through with families and let them know, you know, this is something that's actively being worked on. But some updates weekly. I'd like to put in a motion to get weekly updates about the progress we're making with the food service issues, because otherwise this is going to be a repetitive conversation. So I think it's important. So I'd like to put in that motion, please.
So there's a motion to have weekly updates. Is there a second?
I'm not going to approve that motion. That motion is not the role of the school committee. It is the role of the receiving superintendent, is the administration. Asking me to and my team to give weekly reports should not be a motion.
Without the respect.
So hold on one moment, guys. So hold on one moment. I'll ask the question. So please do enlighten me on what we mean by that.
Well, you're asking me to develop a weekly report to the school committee around food and nutrition. That is the administration of the superintendent and the receiver. That is not the role. The role of the school committee is not the day-to-day operation of the district.
I think we're asking for a weekly update on the issues that we're trying to resolve currently and what the administration's point of efforts are in that week to address the current issues, not an overall update on the, you know, overall food plan.
Well, then I would need clarity of what's the request, because that just can be a request from the vice chair to me, not a motion.
Mr. Sheehan, I see your hand raised physically.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say in any type of setting, I mean, you all know how I am. I'm not a load administration up with types of reports. I mean, receivership or not, I think that we get pretty routine updates. I know that Ms. Garcia sends things out from the superintendent. And I mean, weekly just seems like nothing may be done this week is my point. I mean, so we're going to get an update that says nothing. I mean, I have been comfortable with the updates that we've been getting personally. And I think that the superintendent and Mr. Soto and everyone else knows the problems that we're having and the problems of the repetition of the problem. So, I mean, I never think reports and asking for reports are needed. I think that at least, I mean, whenever I have asked for an item to be on our agenda, I've emailed Mildred and the superintendent, and it's always been on the agenda, or I've always gotten information. I just I just don't think, like I said, receivership or not, to mandate reporting, it adds to work of people at central office that, I mean, there's other things going on, and I mean, it just is a lot every week if we load up with 1 million reports. I mean, I could think of 10 other things that I want reports on that I don't necessarily need every week.
Okay, okay, Miss Brunel, I'm Miss Burke, sorry. You are on mute. Like, we can't hear you.
You know, I want to keep the fluid conversation without it taking up more than half of a school committee meeting every single time. And I want to know that we are making progress moving forward. So I'm not asking for a report. I'm asking for just an update to say, these are some of the things that we're moving forward and this is how. That's a quick 5-sentence thing. And I don't think, you know, for me personally, your response in that kind of came as an attack, which, you know, I'm the receiver and I'm not going to do this, but I want to have fluid.
No, I'm going to push back on that. I'm going to push back because it was called to a motion. I think we've come a long way to build that collegial relationship that you can text me or email me the request and I will get it to the school committee, whether it's as a whole or whether it's a request that came from a school committee for an individual request for information. And so I think I've been, you know, doing as best I've been doing and answering the requests that have come in. I think the fact that it's being called to a motion for a vote, I think it's inappropriate, and it's just not appropriate.
Okay, so what I'm going to say, Dr. Vasquez Matos, is just to ensure, so when you do have the talks, Mr. Soto, when he has the talks with Sodexo, we just want to ensure that our district, everything is equitable across the board. It just doesn't only mean in education, it also means in what we're giving our students, meal-wise. There shouldn't be inequities across the Commonwealth. Everybody should be, whether we pay more in tax, whether we don't pay more in tax, okay? So we just don't want to be left out and not aware of what's going on. We want to make sure that it's also not being put into the back burner. Sodexo, in all this time, like I said, 2.5 years later, they presented last month that all of a sudden they're going to look at culturally competent food and giving arroz con gandules. Well, you said that 2.5 years ago that you were going to do that. So it's the lack of actually seeing them move forward on their plans and more of it taking more and more years down the road. I don't want to continue seeing that we're waiting another 2 more years before we're actually making any gains in our food service. So,
I will send the school committee
and versus having it here, like, you know, hopefully if we have a huge change, then great, we'll put it on our agenda so that we can, you know, highlight any huge change, just like when we talked about the salad bars coming in. But I don't want to have to talk about update on school lunch again next month. I'm hoping that the beef jerky's gone. I really do hope that that is gone and that we're looking at more edible food in the coming months. So, Ms. Brunel, because I do want to move on into the next topic.
Oh, I have that was just not lowered from last time.
Huh?
Okay.
All right.
Lowered.
Okay.
So I think I've been forgotten, I think.
No, Rose, Miss Tesley Williams, I did call you earlier. Maybe you didn't hear me, but did you have a comment or question?
Yes, I do, and it's back to COVID-19.
Oh, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We're almost there.
All righty, because I'd like to wrap this meeting up.
I hear that. Okay. So no more on food, school lunch and breakfast. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Dr. Vasquez Matos, update on COVID and district response.
So as the school committee is aware, you receive those daily, some weekly updates of COVID, as well as also the website that we've made public as relates to how many cases the district has. And so last week, including Holyoke, there were 40 communities in the red. And this week, there are 63 using the new matrix, the health matrix that the state has put forth to many cities and municipalities. And as of 10/14, Holyoke's average daily incident rate was 13 to 100,000 over the past 14 days. A rate over 100,000 will put the community at red. So Holyoke, total number of cases is 1,211 as a city. The district has had 75 cases over the past 14 days. Holyoke's test positivity is 2.58%, with those tests being provided. As of 10/14, we have seen increase in positive cases since school resumed. We are currently right now at about 68, 69 cases. Now, it's important for me also to highlight that the majority of the cases that we are seeing coming in are students who are remote learners, which means they are not coming into an in-person setting. Those are very few cases, and there is no transmission or evidence of transmission within those in-person cases. And so it's important for me to highlight that, because those are one of the things that we are asked as school districts to look at, as because districts are expected to prioritize in-person learning across all color-coded categories unless there is a suspected in-school transmission in accordance with the DESE guidance on responding to COVID-19 scenarios. And so how did they define transmission? Transmission in schools is defined as a spread of the virus between people during the interactions in the school setting. And so again, while there have been positive COVID-19 cases of staff and students in schools, most of these infections have occurred outside of the school setting. If there is a suspected in-school transmission, then the affected classrooms or schools should temporarily shift to remote learning. We have not had to do that with those students who have been in person. We follow the protocols carefully. The nurses and health team have been phenomenal working with principals and families. We are monitoring our cases. We continue to send out information to families and guidance around, safe and health precautions that they should be taking. Our schools still continue to provide all of the safety PPEs, required equipments, and so forth, especially for our staff and students who are in person learning situation. And as well as also encouraging our families to take the opportunity of the free COVID testing throughout the city, as well as the influenza or the flu vaccine, which is required for all students before December, the end of December. So I do have with me Marianne and Cynthia Carbone. If the school committee has any additional questions as it relates to COVID and where we're at as a school district.
Let me find out. Ms. Tensley Williams, is this where you wanted to speak on?
Again.
Yes. Dr. Vasquez really answered my question. I just want to ask, the tracking and the tracing? How are we doing in that department?
So the team, the nursing team, and the health department have been amazing in dealing with any cases that come in. We work also closely with the City Department of Health. Sean and his team have been amazing partners during this pandemic. We meet weekly, but I do know also my team is on the phone with them, sometimes daily, and speaking to cases. I get briefed every single day. Hence, many of you receive my updates as it relates to COVID. And so we continue to monitor this carefully. The other thing I would like to mention, which is not in my written report because it came in today, we were one of the districts approved to administer the, and Cynthia will tell you the correct name is coming, but the COVID testing for our students and families in our schools, but it requires some training. So we were one of the districts to be able to do that. So, so that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So we're doing the rapid antigen test?
That is correct.
Okay. I have Mr. Wellahan.
Thank you, Doctor, for the weekly updates. I really appreciate them, and thank your staff for me too for the work they're doing. It's just these stats just show just a massive uptick in the COVID cases over the last couple weeks. I'm not really that surprised that's happening throughout the state, throughout the country, in different areas of the country. How do we stack up with other gateway cities in the state? Do you know those stats, or if you don't have those, can you get that for us for the next meeting? I just want to compare our stats versus the gateway communities.
Yeah, I can get those numbers for you.
Okay.
But I can tell you that everyone is seeing an uptick in the cases in the entire New England area.
Okay.
Not just the state.
Yeah, I know some of the suburbs, someone might have a house party, for instance, and that's gonna set the town back. I know Amherst, I know they're seeing an uptick because of the college population. So I just want to keep our eye on the city of Holyoke and really just kind of compare the gateway communities. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I had Mr. Sheehan next.
Yeah, I'll just say, as far as gateway communities, they're all red. If you look at the Mass DPH puts out the report every Thursday. Holyoke is, this presentation is old because the timing happens things change every day, but Holyoke's in the red now, as of last Thursday. So, if you just go on the mass.gov website and look for the COVID chart, it used to be the COVID map, but they don't want to color code the map anymore. Almost every gateway city that is at least the original gateway cities are all red with that. So as far as the first thing I'll say is that any pressure that the district can put on, and especially with our state, federal, and local officials. I know someone that went up to get tested today at HCC. They got up there at 9:30. It says you open till 11, and they were told the quota was met. It's testing is scarce. So they drove to the Eastfield Mall and got tested and waited 3 hours in line. People are waiting, and I know that Mrs. Brunel was posting that she was waiting to get tested. These free sites are wonderful, and they are great for the community, but it just the demand is much higher. Because we know it would be. We're being told you're getting a call, you're getting whatever, you're trying to be safe, whatever it may be, and you want to go get checked. So, we need to push for the fact that we need more free testing sites, and we need them to be staffed. But is there any ability to tell us more about this school testing, or is it just too early? I mean,
No.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, Cynthia, I know you're on, but it was the rapid testing. It has
IMAX now.
Thank you, Cynthia. But yeah, we can provide more information. We just got the email today, and it was just like 12 different documents and different protocols. So Cynthia, you wanna?
I mean, it's okay if not, if it's easier to put it out later, but if there's just some overview.
Yeah, we can. Yep.
Hello there, everybody. So it's BIMAX now, and we're very excited. And like Dr. Vasquez said, we just received this information late this afternoon, and there were lots of attachments to that email as well. There's lots and lots of paperwork to review, and we want to do this right. And we're just so thrilled to have been selected to offer this. So BIMAX now is what it's called. It is an antigen test. And what we'll be doing with that is that school nurses across the district will be trained. And it's a very simple swab. It's a nasal swab, 1, 2, 3. It's not the deep nasopharyngeal swipe. It's a nostril swipe, either side. And it's a test kit. And so within 15 minutes, the school nurse is going to be able to give the family an idea if that child is positive, or that staff member if they are positive. And it is fast, which is great. The results are highly accurate, which is important to know. But oftentimes it will be recommended that there be a follow-up on that, because it is a quick test, and although it is said to be highly accurate, some false positives can happen occasionally. So that will be on a case-by-case basis how we look at that, and how the nurses look at the results, and look at the symptoms of the child and the whole situation as well. And so in that case, there would be the recommendation that the family seek a follow-up molecular test, which could either be done at the doctor's office or at one of the sites that are available. But it's going to give us the opportunity, when we have someone come into the offices that has symptoms, because this is only for folks with symptoms, that we can give them that initial answer about, all right, we've got a positive test here. And so that is information that the family has right away, and then they can take action. It's a great opportunity.
So just with that in comparison to the free tests that are, I mean, I don't know if you've gone for the test at HCC or Eastfield Mall. I mean, I have. I mean, and it seems like it's a similar type of just in the nostril type of test. Mm-hmm. I mean, is it the same test? I mean, could those tests be done in 15 minutes with answers?
Molecular tests are the gold standard. Those are the ones that, we refer to them as the viral test, or the COVID test, or the nucleic acid amplification test. And those can be ready, the results, in as quickly as same day to up to a week. And that it's a different technique that particular test uses. It's a viral test. It tells an individual if they have a current infection. And so they're different tests, and they do different things. So if there's any question on either the nurse or family or physician, then the referral would be still out. The child or staff member would still go home, but the follow-up, they may just have to have a follow-up test based on.
So I'm assuming you mentioned a second ago that if they come and get this test in the offices, that they have to be displaying some sort of symptoms.
Yes,
so
that's correct.
I'm guessing that no matter the outcome of the test, even if it came up negative, they would still be showing symptoms of COVID. Something. They would still have to follow the not be at school procedures, and most likely have to reach out to their primary care, whoever it is, to get another test just to see, right?
You got it. Absolutely. Okay. That is correct. Yes. This is just another tool that we can have in our tool belt for families to give them some real quick information that has been shown to be highly accurate.
I'm good, thank you.
Question.
One moment, Ms. Tensley Williams, because I had some other people that had their hands up, but I will get back to you, okay?
Thank you.
No problem. I have Mr. Kushane.
Hi, good evening. I'm wondering, now I'm wondering also how you're saying it's highly accurate. What is the percentage accuracy of that test is what I'm wondering. I had some other questions, but that just real quick, what is the accuracy?
I can get the information to you. I don't have the exact number, so I'd like to check the information and I can get that to you.
Okay, all right, not a problem. My questions on COVID. I saw over the last 2-3 weeks, I think everybody's seen it. We're getting daily reports that there are students, mostly like 99% seem to be remote learners. Are we sending information to the parents? Are we sending parents the same information that the school committee is getting, so that they know how many instances there are? And are the parents getting information how, just to reinforce how to protect themselves and maybe avoid another infection in their household? Are we doing anything like that?
Yeah, those are great. Those are great questions. Absolutely. And if you jump over to our website when you have a few minutes sometime and just key into the health, wellness, and nursing piece. And then from there, it can bring you off to some specialized areas. Everything that we offer is there in English and in Spanish as well. And if you go to the metrics page in particular, that's going to answer a lot of your questions in terms of numbers. And you are correct in terms of our students that are in person versus remote. Our in-person cohort, we've had 5 positives, and remote, we've had 56 students that are positive. And we've had 6 in-person teachers and 7 remote teachers that have tested positive. So we have 69 positives in the district since September 14th. So you're absolutely correct that it is overwhelmingly within the community that we're seeing the cases, not within the school as well. And so the other things that we're doing, we're real excited about our new flu page too for flu education. And since June, we knew our nursing was meeting regularly, and we were looking at the research, and we knew flu was going to be a huge concern. So we started our efforts well ahead of time about flu education because we wanted to give families that opportunity to think about it and to process it and to talk about what they needed to do. And then the state came out with their requirement telling us that the flu vaccine for our students is now recommended. So we felt we were in a really good position that we had already been doing some work with that. And now you can visit the site, and the whole page is interactive. We have some videos on that families can watch together. There's lots of information to read. Well, why should I do this? Why do I want this? What are some frequent questions that people are asking about the flu? And so that is all available there. And then the other piece of it, that when a family is stricken with COVID, our nurses are right on it. I meet multiple times daily through video with the Board of Health. And I'm very grateful for that relationship because we work hand in hand. And whenever there is a child in the city, it's immediately, no matter what time of day, as Dr. Vasquez will attest to, or what day of the week, because Saturday or Sunday, because COVID does not take the weekend off. Deb is right there calling me, reaching out. I can immediately let Dr. Vasquez know, and so he's always aware of what's going on. But then it's about the relationship that the nurse has with the family, and then the nurse is able to reach out and connect with that family. And we also have the CTC, and those are the community tracers that are available for contact tracing. that also work collaboratively with the Board of Health and with the school department. And so that's another resource. And Deb and I meet twice a week with them as well. So that's a resource for families around whatever their need is, whether it's a food-related need or transportation or healthcare. They're there for that as well. And then the nurses, not only do they reach out to that family, but are they every day available if there's any questions as well. So it's just an ongoing supportive kind of a thing. We have to work together with this to stay ahead of it.
That's really encouraging to hear, because we get the notices and then we don't know, and then what happened? You know, we don't know what's happened.
I see.
I have two quick follow-up questions, just on more to do with academics. But I'm wondering, what is our participation rate these days with the online learning, and are we losing students? I'm hearing in some of the schools we're losing students. I'm hearing parents tell me that they're overwhelmed by the number of hours of screen time that we're requiring of our students. I'm hearing as much as 5 hours, 5 3/4 hours mandated, and it's mostly, 4.5 hours of Zoom time. And I'm wondering what's happening. I'm just curious.
So we do have, based on the latest numbers that I recall, we're at between, for the remote learners, about 88% attendance rate district-wide. So there are schools that are in the high 90s, and there are schools that are in the 87, 88% of attendance. We have a higher attendance actually in the in-person, the schools that are actually in-person. I have not seen a decline in enrollment numbers, though. I heard that, this is challenging for remote learners? Yes. From parents, I think there is a need, and there is a concern around parents really wanting their students back in person learning, and we also have, a group of parents who are so uncomfortable for in-person learning. So I have both that have come to my attention and continue to come to my attention, and so that's what we're trying to navigate as we're looking at the cases. Now we have open academic, learning pods. We're going to be introducing one for the high schools very soon, just to add another level of support for families that they can have if the remote setting have not been successful at home. So those have been doing well, and students have been participating in those learning pods throughout the district.
Can I interrupt one real quick? So attendance versus completing all the hours every day. Are we seeing, when we're saying they're attending, are we saying they're completing this rigorous? It seems rigorous to me when I look at all the hours. I have a spreadsheet in front of me that a parent sent to my attention, and I'm seeing 4.5 hours of Zooming. I'm seeing just the breakout of each, the English sections, math sections. Are the students that are attending, are they doing all the work, or are they attending a little? What's that?
So there's a difference between, the attendance, which means being live in the session, versus, completed assignments. And so I would have, that's a different data set around complete assignment. Those usually at the school and classroom level. What I can tell you is students participating in school and live session is at the 87 percentile. Now, what I can't tell you right now is how many students have completed their assignments or are on task, because that's a different data set, and that's usually at the classroom level.
Okay, sorry, and I interrupted you. I apologize, but that was you said I was like those rates are really good, and then I was like, well, wait a minute, are they getting through? Because these are tough days, and I'm just curious, and we can come back to that. But what you were saying?
So I lost my train of thought there right now.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think, so I think one of the things that that I wanted to piggyback off with Cynthia is that when it comes to also educating the families around preventative measures around COVID, we have been doing being very intentional of pushing out the information through the weekly Holyoke update that goes to families. The videos that I've been doing, those, the Dr. V's top 3 questions, all recently they all have been around COVID related. Inviting the Department of Health to be part of the Facebook Live right before Halloween. They were doing a campaign around Halloween, and so they joined me on Facebook Live to start educating our families in both English and Spanish. And so we've been very intentional. Now we're doing this whole Thanksgiving of how to, send out information of how, to enjoy Thanksgiving in a very safe way in the middle of this pandemic. So not only it's living, on a website or a piece of paper, we're actually pushing it out in different ways where people can actually have access to it and either listen to it, watch it, read it. And so we've been, pushing that out to our families because what we're seeing is actually the cases are happening at home.
Yeah, we are seeing it across families and within homes, and we're seeing that lateral spread within the community. I do want to mention that I just went through my notebook because I didn't want to speak off the top of my head and say something incorrectly, but I do have it right here in my notes about the Binax Now. And so it is most accurate, in fact, within the first 70 days, and that sweet spot for testing is about 4 to 5 days. So on average, it's 84 to 98% sensitivity rate. So that is very high. And that just means it's the rate of detecting the infection correctly. That's what a sensitivity rate means. Now, after 1 week's time, though, it does drop to 75%. So if there was somebody who was asymptomatic, for example, didn't have symptoms that they were showing outwardly until after 7 weeks, say maybe at day 8 or 9, and they were tested, it might be less likely to be correct after a period of time because of the way that the virus is affecting the body. So 84 to 98 on average within the first week is very high.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Thank you, guys.
Ms. Brunel?
Yeah, so I would just like to thank Cynthia and the district for all the work they're doing. I can speak not only as a school committee member, but as a parent who has 2 children enrolled in the district that have tested positive. And the nursing staff was phenomenal. They reached out basically within hours of when I had my results, and we're super on top of who were we in contact with, just completely on point. As a member of society, you're so aware of what you're supposed to do if it happens or if you come in contact with somebody. But when it happens to you in your own home, you forget everything, right? So they were just such a great resource, wealth of information, super attentive. So I just would like to say kudos to the district on doing like everything Cynthia said that they're doing, like they're doing. So very good job. The nursing staff is doing amazing. Kudos to that. But then I'd like to make some other points as well. I think the fact that the state changed how we are identifying district-wide, not district, but citywide COVID cases, red, yellow, how we're classifying risk levels in city of towns is absolutely tragic. It's basically like we just accepted the fact that the numbers are going to be at a certain level. And so let's just adjust what we consider yellow and red. I mean, you can see on the previous slide that you had that we went from, it was a couple slides ago. I mean, I don't expect you to slide back. That's okay. But the point is we were red, red, red. And then all of a sudden our numbers, our positivity rate went, there you go. went from 3.2 to 4.7, but all of a sudden we're yellow. So while I completely understand everyone's, not everyone's, but the state, the governor, DESE's push and emphasis for in-person learning, I think everyone understands that our children would highly benefit from in-person learning, but thank goodness we are not in person. The reason why, luckily, our numbers within the in-person spectrum of the district are so low is because we have such a low number of people having in-person services. And thank goodness for that, because with cases happening the way they are, I just can't imagine us possibly being open. And, I just don't understand how schools, there's so much pressure to be open, yet bars are open, restaurants are open, movie theaters are open, shopping malls are open, all this stuff is open. And schools should be the priority. All that other stuff should be closed if we expect schools to be able to open successfully and educate our children. So I just think that the state's decoding of this coding is absolutely nonsense, not any reflection on the district. So I would just like to point that out. But as a district ourselves, I think you guys are doing a really great job handling what we are handling. So yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brunel. Then I had Ms. Burks. Oh, I thought I had Ms. Burks. Ms. Burks, did you have something? Your hand was there.
I'm curious, but I don't know if it is a question that'll actually make sense. So I know we have a lot of remote learners that have tested positive more so than are in person. I'm curious about the numbers of like how many of our remote learners have in-person learners in the same household, or parents, or that are staff members in the district. So I'm just intrigued by that. So if we have a positive remote learner, but they have a sibling, let's say, who's in person, if we've come across any of those kind of cases, or if you have a student that's positive, that's remote, and let's say an immediate family member, whether it be parent or whatever, works in schools, I'm just curious to know if there's any data there.
Oh, yes, we do keep track of that as well. And as you can imagine, that does happen. And so individuals who live in the same household and are exposed to a positive individual then become considered exposed. And therefore, they would not attend school if they were in-person learners. And so that is something that is tracked. And then the recommendations are made for the family to test if they choose to. Not all families test. I would say by and large, most of them do, but not all of them. And so then based on the results of the testing, if the close contact tests negative or positive, or the family doesn't test, then recommendations are made for when they could come back to in-person learning. But yeah, those numbers, the names and numbers are kept. When there's a a positive case, the nurses do the contact tracing at that time. We've found that asking those questions right away, when that individual has the symptoms or when that first phone call is made, that we get the most accurate results. And then those folks are all reached out to. And if it happens at school, then they're personally called by one of the nurses. Typically, if an admin wants to help out, that would be okay too. But typically, the nurses call the families and let them know that they have been a close contact, and then a letter goes out to the balance that identifies that, for example, there was someone positive. If you were a close contact, you've already been contacted directly. So there's a whole step.
So if there is a positive, let's say, one sibling is a remote learner and positive, and the in-person student hasn't been tested yet, you guys have deemed that person has been in contact with somebody who's positive. So, unfortunately, with the current situation, that child that's actually in person,
yes,
before whether or not that child's positive, they could be exposing other in-person learners and staff. So is any outreach done by way of that, like to give families a heads up, like, hey, we've got a positive family member, we're just giving you guys a heads up, so they could utilize and be aware and conscious enough to go utilize one of the free testing sites?
Well,
just it seems like our numbers are so dramatic.
They are.
And I know, like with Bay State, the numbers are crazy in the hospital right now. So I just can't help but to wonder, like, what else can we do to help stop the spread? Those are just like the things running through my head.
Well,
And then
those are great questions. They are, and serious concerns. Yeah.
And then another thing is, like, if we have staff members who have, immediate household member that's positive, like,
yes,
what are the protocols? Because I know, for
they
us,
go remote.
Have specific, protocols that we have to follow, but are they allowed to like test out and say, hey, X family member has a positive, but I've tested and I'm negative, so I'm allowed to come back to school. So I'm thinking about like those other processes.
Yes,
just because I am concerned with numbers in Holyoke, and I know you guys are doing a great job, clearly, but there's always questions because the data changes so rapidly, and even for us in the healthcare field. So
yes, it does.
Some questions.
Thank you. Yeah. So we do follow our protocols to the T. We're very serious about making sure that we are completely consistent across the board. And so if someone is at home with a positive individual and they are a close contact, they would then work remotely or teach remotely, because they would not be allowed to come back into the building until they are tested and until a period of time passes based on their testing as well. So, we can only do what we can do in terms of protecting ourselves with COVID, because it is so insidious. And you're absolutely correct. The rates are so very high. So it's those mitigation strategies. We really need to do the things that we can do. That's why we spent a lot of time on masking and mask education. And like Dr. Vasquez mentioned, like in the weekly updates and online social media, we're doing a lot with that as well. And his Dr. V's top 3. Because it's the mitigation strategies that are going to keep people safe, and the understanding that COVID is all around us now. And so we need to be very vigilant. We need to understand about mask wearing. We need to be doing that correctly. We need to be keeping distance. We need to be 6 foot or more away from other individuals. We can't get closer than that for more than 10 or 15 minutes because it's not safe. And we need to clean our hands regularly is another thing that we can all do to help protect ourselves. And those are the ways that we're going to knock down that virus. It's our behaviors. It's those protective things that we do. Being cautious with gatherings. Dr. Vasquez mentioned Thanksgiving, and that's something that we've reached out across the district for families, is education around gathering, because it's only normal to want to gather together over the holidays. And so because of that, we want to make sure that they're doing that safely. And it hurts to say this, but loved ones can give one another COVID. And I've been told before by folks saying, oh, my family would never give me COVID. No, they would not do that, Cynthia. And it's like, I am so sorry to say that COVID doesn't care if you're related or not, right? It is a contagious disease, so we have to treat it as such. And so we have to think about Thanksgiving differently this year, and we have to behave differently. And you know, it's painful for all of us what we're all going through. But it's only through being vigilant, following our protocols, looking at the research, doing what we can. It's our behaviors. How are we behaving when we're out and about? You know, when you're doing your grocery shopping run, when you're running errands, are you using your hand sanitizer? Are you using proper masking techniques? Because even with those best techniques, we do see that it happens, and sometimes still folks get COVID. So we have to just all be really, really careful and follow these strategies that we can use, because there are no guarantees with COVID, and that's the difficult thing. And I'm very proud of I'm proud of the district and the work that our nurses have done, and I believe that, you know, we are working overtime, just doing the very best we can to educate and work with families in a very difficult time for everybody. So thank you. Those are great questions, and it helps us to be better.
Thank you very much, Ms. Burks. Mr. Coshane, is that you forgot to lower your hand, or did you have another?
There, that's better. I forgot to lower my hand, but
okay.
I also I did want to follow up again with the, you know, Dr. Vasquez. Would you mind getting back to me about? I'd like to know about the participation throughout the day, because I am concerned that it seems like a really long day, and I'm wondering if maybe I'm not sure how people are looking at those stats and maybe looking at restructuring and giving more break time. I don't know if other people who are parents here are experiencing that or not. But when, you know, I don't have kids in the school right now, and so I'm kind of more sensitive to that because I don't have kids in the school and I'm not getting the feedback I used to get. So I'm just curious to know if parents are really struggling, if we might want to look at restructuring the day a little bit, or what's happening.
Yep, and so I can send you that information. I can tell you that when you look at, there is a standard primary schedule that teachers are asked to follow, and it starts with, you know, 8 to 9 with a check-in meeting with a teacher or support staff with a student. It's not a whole group session, but it's kind of an individual instructional time with the students, and then they go into until about 9 until 12 o'clock. That's when synchronous instruction happens. But it's broken into anywhere between 40 minutes to 30 minutes. And there are breaks in between, what they call brain breaks. And so there's a time for them to actually reach out and ask a question to their teacher or use the restroom and so forth. And then they go to lunch. So there is a standard schedule during the day. But 3.5 to 4 hours is part of the instructional day, but there is breaks in between those days. It's not that they go, you know, straight through to that time, and then they go to lunch, and then they do the afternoon asynchronous. But I will send you more the details so you can actually see how the schedule looks.
Thank you, Mr. Coshane. I have Mr. Sheehan.
I'm just wondering if someone could tell us more about the flu clinics that are being offered, just so we can promote that as well.
And I have a question too.
So with regard to flu clinics, we've offered about, over 20 now flu clinics across the district. And we had outdoor flu clinics regularly, multiple times per week, that we shared out with families through social media, through direct calling of families, through written word update, etc. So lots and lots of families, of course, took advantage of those. And we collaborated and advertised for the Board of Health, who continued to have some, up until very recently, outdoor flu clinics. And now what we're looking at is folks would be getting their flu shots either through their physicians or at a local pharmacy. And that's what we're recommending now, because the age for the ability for pharmacies to give flu shots to children has recently been changed, and they can give it to younger children. I believe it's, I want to say 5, like for CVS, and like Stop and Shop is like 9 and over, is what it was most recently. So that's what we're looking to, and that's what nursing is referring folks to now. But I think by and large, you know, usually communities will have 1 or 2, but we just really felt like we were just going to go all out, and we're grateful to have worked with Stop and Shop Pharmacy, and our nurses collaborated with them and offered lots of them everywhere. We're very grateful for their work.
Thank you. I have Miss Brunel.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back and appreciate Niles' comments about timing and online learning. So I will say, as a parent with, you know, school-age children doing remote, I think that the asynchronous, the individual learning time and assignments is a bit heavy on the screen. I wish there was more ways we could incorporate the students having on paper assignments, because I think in theory it takes 20 minutes to do the assignment, but because they're having to do it in an online platform and dragging and dropping a text box and copying and pasting a photo, or, you know, figuring out how to underline something, or, you know, what have you, that it's taking significantly longer to accomplish an assignment than what may, you know, be intended. But to that point, and Niles' point of wanting that information, I know that there is surveys that went home to the families, asking, you know, just exact some of these questions, how we're adapting to the learning, how we're feeling about everything. So I just want to encourage families to take that time to not only as a parent fill out the survey, but it's from a child's perspective as well. So there's login information for the children to fill them out as well. So, you know, it's helpful for the district to have this information to be able to adjust the platforms as need be.
Thank you very much, Miss Brunel. Miss Tensley Williams?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. The Board of Health, are they a testing site for COVID?
Yes.
No. The Board of Health.
For you mean COVID? Are there COVID testing sites in town?
Well, I'm asking if is the Board of Health, or would they only test for people that work for the city?
No, there's 2 sponsored COVID sites in town that the Board of Health is sponsoring. One of them is a walk-up site on Appleton Street, and the other is the drive-through site over at Holyoke Community College. And it's something I was actually talking with Sean about this on Friday, and again he mentioned it this morning to us at our HPS Board of Health meeting. And they are looking and trying to advocate for more sites like that to be offered in Western Massachusetts. We're one of the few sites out here that is offering this walk-up or drive-up style free clinic. And we're being inundated with folks from all communities around us because we're the ones that have the resources. And so they are having those conversations, and we really would like to see more of these testing sites throughout Western Massachusetts because we need them.
Okay, thank you.
Cynthia, I'll just say, when you're talking to them, I think it's sometimes less about the sites and more about staffing. I mean, that HCC site has had like 1 person working the past couple days. I mean, it is,
okay.
It's more about being at capacity of what you can do and having the necessary supplies. I mean, I think more sites would be great, but even if they extended the hours at HCC from the 9, I think they start at 7 a.m. and run until 7 o'clock at night. I mean, if they could, I mean, that would alleviate some of it. If you drive by there, so I live right near there when testing is about to start, like if you don't show up an hour early, you're in line down by the softball, baseball fields. I mean, and with 1 person working, people are waiting 3-4 hours in line and being told, oh, we run out of swabs.
Oh, okay. All right. I will talk with Sean.
I'm sorry, I echo Devin's point if I may. We went through there one time with 4 staff members, waited only an hour. The second time we actually got in line, I kid you not, same parking lot, same spot, and it took 3.5 because there was 1 staff member. So, you know, like Devin said, more sites won't be effective. If the sites themselves would be staffed properly, then they could be much more effective.
Okay. I'll bring that forward to Sean and share your observations. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the updates. The next topic was, I don't know, Dr. Vasquez Matos, you had mentioned Miss Marianne Courier, but
Yes.
I don't recall her speaking. I don't know if we stopped and cut off along the way. Was she supposed to mention something?
No, she's part of the COVID task force, so that's why I had her online, but I think we're good.
Okay, great. So the next topic was superintendent's communications.
So just a couple of dates for the community. Tomorrow, November 17th, is the DPAC meeting at 6 p.m. Please visit our website or the Holyoke update for the link to that meeting. November 18th is the CPAC meeting at 6 p.m. Again, that's the link as well as been sent out, but it's also included in the Holyoke update. Lastly, I want to wish the school committee and the entire Holyoke community who's watching this a happy Thanksgiving, because we won't meet until the after Thanksgiving break. So I want to wish you and your loved ones a healthy and safe and enjoyable Thanksgiving break. I think we all deserve some rest and during that time.
Thank you so much. And we also wish all the staff for HPS and yourself as well, Dr. Vasquez Matos, a happy Thanksgiving and a safe one as well. So we're going to go ahead and move to new business, meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
There's motion to approve, second.
Aye.
Second.
Niall, second. Roll call, please. Oh, any discussion before I go to roll call? No. Roll call, please, Ms. LaFond.
Mayor Morris? Ms. LaFave?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Sheehan?
Yes.
Ms. Brunel?
Yes.
Tinsley Williams?
See.
Thank you. Ms. Burks?
Yes.
Mr. Willihan?
Yes.
Mr. Collmore? Mr. Cushane?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, thank you,
Hey.
Mr. Collmore.
He's here.
Great. It's nice to hear you, Mr. Collmore. So motion passes unanimously. No further new business going on to old business, ongoing business. There's nothing on the agenda right now, but was there any ongoing business or announcements? No announcements either? Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I have an announcement.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Sheehan.
I just want to recognize, for those of you that don't know, that Ms. LaFave was elected to be the treasurer of the Mass Association of School Committees last weekend. Officially, she'd been nominated over the summer and was elected on Saturday. So congratulations to her. She'll move up the ranks to lead the organization.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We always have to make sure we've got Holyoke up there, right? And
it was a pleasure being able to vote for you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brunel. So no further announcements. So I did hear a motion to adjourn. I believe that was by Ms. Sheehan, right?
Ms. Tinsley Williams, I think.
Okay, Ms. Tinsley Williams wants that one. So Motion to adjourn by Ms. Tensley Williams, second by Ms. Burks. Any discussion? No. Roll call, please.
Faith,
Yes.
Mr. Sheen,
Yes.
Brunel,
Yes, ma'am.
Hensley Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Burks,
Yes.
Mr. Willahen,
Yes.
Mr. Collmore. Just shut yourself off again, Mr. Collmore. Start.
We were so hopeful.
I heard him.
Mr. Mr. Cushing?
Yes.
Oh, because you're going to leave us hanging. Star 6, Mr. Collmore.
R6.
I believe spiritual.
Thank you.
So, motion passes unanimously. Meeting's adjourned at 9:05. And again, I wish our community a happy Thanksgiving and a safe one as well. And we'll see you next month.